Chapter 24:11. Saving time come. Then these geniuses nodded. They stared at each other, their eyes filled with a thick fighting spirit. They all wanted to eliminate each other. Then, over a dozen geniuses walked into the circle. Hold on, I'll also join this elimination round. But at this time, a smiling voice echoed out from the distance, causing everyone to look over. They saw a youth galloping towards them. His blue robes fluttered in the wind, giving off a feeling as if he were roaming the world. This person was Lin Ling. What a handsome young man! The army cried out in their hearts. In their eyes, this youth was like a god that had descended to earth. But those young martial gods from their academies were unhappy. This was because they had been preparing to begin, but this youth had suddenly arrived, and even asked to join. Didn't this mean that they were all waiting for this youth to join? And most importantly, this youth was only at the 3rd level of the World King realm. What qualifications did he have? What a disgrace. You must have come here to enjoy the feeling of superiority. Someone mocked. Maybe he came here to covet the food of the royal family. After all, he has been eliminated. But the second prince will still invite him to a meal. Such a person, I will be the first to eliminate him. These geniuses indifferently said, all of them proud and arrogant. Of course, they were all masters of a world in the past. So they naturally had the qualifications to be proud. Brat, are you from Resplendent Academy? I've never seen you before. Someone lifted their chin and looked at Lin Ling. Because Lin Ling was this year's last generation disciple candidate, they naturally hadn't seen him before. Indeed, Lin Ling leapt down from his horse, slowly walking forwards. Rookie. Hearing this, the other geniuses also confirmed that Lin Ling was a newcomer. Then roll over here. This young master is in a good mood today. Because of the second prince, I will spare your arm. Someone stretched out a giant arm, slowly clenching it into a fist as he lightly said. When his fist moved, the entire rising sun boundary seemed to be in turmoil. Qianshan, don't mess around. If you destroy the drawn circle, you will be eliminated. Another person immediately said with a smile. My world essence is too great. If you want me to restrain my strength now, isn't that just like embroidery? But eliminating all of you is still simple. The young man who clenched his fist smiled confidently. For a moment, the auras of the young martial gods from the 3 great academies clashed, causing the second prince to smile bitterly. Beside him, a beautiful young woman walked over and frowned as she looked at the martial gods. Brother, these experts are so arrogant. They are very strong. We are like ants in front of them. Of course they are arrogant. If it wasn't for the long history of our rising sun boundary, and the 3 great academies giving us face, I'm afraid these martial god geniuses wouldn't even look at us. The second prince shook his head and said, Royal brother is right. However, there are 28 martial god realm geniuses here. I wonder who will remain in the end. The beautiful young woman asked curiously. The second prince's gaze swept over them, and he said solemnly, the higher the cultivation level, the higher the success rate. After saying this, he looked at Lin Ling, who had already walked into the circle. He shook his head and said, that young man should be a candidate for these 2 years. His strength is a bit weak. Isn't he going to be humiliated? The beautiful young woman frowned. On the road of martial arts, being humiliated is unavoidable. Perhaps only after experiencing this will he be able to work harder. After all, I have heard that the 3 great academies have many missions, but most of the martial god geniuses that enter their academies fail to complete them. This is the reason their background is lacking. Alright, let them begin. After the second prince explained, he smiled at the crowd and said, begin. At almost the same time, the 10-meter wide circle erupted with an aura. One person's aura was too strong. He rushed into the circle, and was directly eliminated, leaving him depressed to the extreme. Being strong wasn't enough? As for the others, their methods of controlling their world essence were even more formidable. They all attacked, and in several breaths of time, those below the 5th stage of the World King realm were forced out of the circle. All of them had dark expressions, so angry that they had nothing to say. In just a moment, there were only 10 people left in the circle. 5 more people would be eliminated. You, a 3rd stage World King, haven't been eliminated yet? Someone suddenly cried out in alarm. Before this, someone had erupted with a powerful martial skill that covered the entire circle. The weaker ones had all been sent flying away. But this blue-robed youth still hadn't moved? As for this blue-robed youth, his cultivation wasn't high, and he should have just become a final-generation disciple candidate. Shouldn't such a person be the weakest? Even the second prince and the others stared at this blue-robed youth, some surprise on their faces. This blue-robed youth was Lin Ling. At this time, his combat strength was like a pine tree, like an immovable king. His mortal body was formidable, reaching a freakish level. If his opponent didn't dare to erupt with their full strength, they simply wouldn't be able to shake him. Of course, even if his opponent erupted with their full strength, Lin Ling could also erupt with his full strength and kill them all the same. Royal brother, that handsome and otherworldly youth is fiercer than we imagined. The beautiful young woman couldn't help but say. The second prince smiled and shook his head. Before this, because his cultivation was low, no one paid attention to him. But now that he is one of the remaining 10, there will be people who will attack him. And indeed in the circle, there were people who attacked Lin Ling. Brat, I'm sorry, but you have been eliminated. Earthquake. A young man in a golden brocade robe said, without even looking at Lin Ling. A strange thing happened. The 10-meter-wide circle started to roll, uproot, and even hang upside down. Everyone was suspended in the air, and they felt the ground shaking, making their feet unstable. What a terrifying power of realm essence. His talent is related to the earth. The surrounding army was shocked. Pa, 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 pa. 3 people couldn't react in time and fell from the sky, eliminated. Now there were only 8 people left. Many people subconsciously looked at Lin Ling, and they were shocked to find that Lin Ling was upside down. But his feet seemed to have taken root, and he didn't move at all. Most importantly, he actually took out wine and drank it. Looking at the others, they all had serious expressions. Some were in a horse stance, some were sitting cross-legged, resisting the mysterious power of realm essence. Brother, look at him. At this moment, the beautiful young woman opened her mouth in shock. How could the youth with the lowest cultivation be so mysterious? The second prince beside him smiled bitterly. He couldn't explain it. Brat, take 3 of my punches, I will break your waist. A genius shouted angrily, and his fist smashed toward Lin Ling. Bang, bang, bang. Realm essence suppressed in the fist landed heavily on Lin Ling's body, causing the circle to shake. Smoke filled the air, but Lin Ling was still safe and sound. The other party only used realm essence to kill him, and didn't use any martial arts. Lin Ling's godly demon body didn't fear such power at all. Get lost. Lin Ling looked up at the same time, and his legs swept out like a whip. He came here for only one purpose, and that was to get a spot. If others didn't provoke him, he couldn't be bothered. If others wanted to eliminate him, he would do it. Chapter 24:12. Towards the Imperial Tomb. Bang! The strength of over 5,000 worlds erupted. The youth that was kicked was sent flying backwards like a cannonball, shooting into the heavens before vanishing from the universe. This kick was terrifying. To kick someone into the universe, just what sort of strength was needed? And what was most terrifying was that even though Lin Ling had erupted with such strength, there wasn't even a speck of dust beneath his feet. Isn't this fellow at the 3rd stage of the World King realm? How could he possibly block Sir Lu's kick? That kick contained the strength of 5 great world essences. The remaining people all looked at Lin Ling. They finally realized that Lin Ling was the most terrifying opponent. Eliminate him. Everyone subconsciously looked at Lin Ling, their eyes burning with unwillingness and anger. This was because Lin Ling was clearly a newcomer to Radiant Academy, but his strength was far greater than these geniuses that had cultivated for several hundred years. To them this was a disgrace. Seeing this, Lin Ling shook his head. He wanted to test just how strong his defenses were. So he continued to drink. This was because even though his opponents attacked, they didn't dare to use any martial arts. They only used the strength of their world essences. He should be able to block this strength. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The 6 people attacked at the same time. Their world essences were extremely terrifying. As their world essences fell onto Lin Ling's body, There was a sound like muffled thunder. Moreover, their strength was too great, causing the circle to break apart. One by one, they fell down from the skies, their faces filled with regret. But when they looked up, they discovered that Lin Ling was still standing there like a pine tree. Moreover, he was slowly floating down. He was fine. That fellow was actually fine with the world essences of 6 people? Could it be that he had cultivated some powerful defensive martial arts? You have all been eliminated. Lin Ling looked at them and smiled. Those geniuses all dropped their jaws. But someone sneered. If the circle is destroyed, aren't you also eliminated? My apologies, but the soil beneath my feet is still the soil of the circle. However, Lin Ling smiled once more. Everyone discovered that from start to finish, Lin Ling's feet hadn't moved at all. He was still standing where he was at the start. Even though the circle was broken, the soil seemed to be sucked in by his feet, drifting down with him. This fellow, everyone's hearts fiercely shook. Sometimes a martial artist's destructive strength. This didn't mean that they were strong. What was truly fierce was a martial artist that had perfect control of their strength. For instance, a sword slashing falling leaves of falling leaves. That was a true martial arts skill. Moreover, they were so strong that they could shatter the circle in a single breath. Therefore, it was even more difficult to control their strength. This was the key to this elimination. Lin Ling's control of his strength had clearly surpassed all of them. The second prince hurriedly bowed. He knew that he had underestimated this blue-robed youth. The beautiful girl next to him was full of admiration. She hoped she could be as strong as the blue-robed young man. That's great. I'll go alone. These people are redundant anyway. Lin Ling nodded. He was in a hurry to complete the mission, so he didn't want any martial gods to waste everyone's time. The martial gods smiled wryly when they heard this. They wanted to refute, but they couldn't. After all, they were indeed eliminated. The second prince smiled wryly too. He bowed respectfully and said, "Let's stick to the previous conditions and leave 5 of you behind. What do you think? It doesn't matter how many of them there are. They won't be able to withstand a single blow from an expert." Lin Ling shrugged indifferently. It wasn't that he looked down on them, but he felt they were still too weak to participate in the mission. However, when the martial god realm geniuses heard the truth, their faces reddened with anger. Won't be able to withstand a single blow. Isn't this young man too arrogant? They didn't know that Lin Ling's overall strength was enough to fight 3 generations at once. Moreover, Lin Ling was now the last generation. Therefore, he didn't think he was arrogant at all. Most importantly, the strongest of these people was only at the level of the falling flowers flowing water sword. They were indeed very weak. How about this? You will choose the remaining 4. The second prince shook his head helplessly and looked at Lin Ling again. Lin Ling smiled. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, he would follow the second prince's request. He glanced at the martial gods. They were furious at first, but now they were looking at Lin Ling with anticipation. Of course, Lin Ling didn't have time to waste. He randomly chose 4 people, called the second prince, and set off immediately. The 4 martial gods who were chosen were extremely lucky, because they could complete the mission. Once they completed it, they would be the last generation of the academy. The army set off toward the imperial tombs in a mighty manner. Lin Ling and the second prince were in the same carriage. Lin Ling sat cross-legged and cultivated. He didn't want to waste too much time. The second prince looked at Lin Ling with a wry smile. He wanted to say something, but he was extremely respectful of Lin Ling. As for the beautiful girl, she was even more so. Although she sat upright and looked like an obedient child, her big eyes stared at Lin Ling curiously from time to time. Is there something wrong with my face? After an unknown period of time, Lin Ling finally opened his eyes and stared at the beautiful girl. No. The beautiful girl was shocked and kept waving her little hands. Senior, please forgive her. My royal sister is very curious about martial arts. It's a pity that her talent is limited, so she hasn't been able to step into a new realm. The second prince was afraid that his sister would offend Lin Ling, and quickly tried to smooth things over. Lin Ling looked at them, and felt as if he was looking at an old friend of the Heaven Mystics Kingdom. At that time, He also helped the second prince of the Heaven Mystic's kingdom seize the throne. Hence, the scene in front of him reminded him of his childhood. Actually, you don't have to be so serious. I didn't speak before, because I wanted to seize the time to cultivate. It doesn't mean that I'm a difficult person to get along with. Lin Ling revealed a friendly smile, which made the second prince and the others less serious. What's your name? Then, Lin Ling looked at the beautiful girl and asked. Sun Yan'er. The beautiful girl didn't dare to raise her head to look at Lin Ling. She clasped her hands together and said nervously. Haha. Lin Ling couldn't help but laugh. This lass was rather shy and didn't have the willfulness of a princess. He nodded and said, after the mission is over, I'll help you improve your talent and guide you on a set of martial arts. Really? The beautiful girl was ecstatic. This time, she dared to stare at Lin Ling. She then asked with anticipation, how powerful will I be? More powerful than those people outside. This is an unchanging fact. Lin Ling said. At this moment, outside the carriage, the remaining 4 martial god prodigies were riding on their horses and protecting the carriage. When they heard Lin Ling's words, they all gritted their teeth. That blue-robed youth looked younger than them, but he acted like an old man, which made them very unhappy. Chapter 24:13. The realm-devouring beast. The army immediately came to a stop after hearing Lin Ling's voice, as if they were facing a formidable foe. In front of them was a huge pitch-black forest. It was extremely quiet, so quiet that it caused them to hold their breaths. The darkness was terrifying. However, the silence lasted for quite some time, causing the 4 martial god realm geniuses to frown. They were quite nervous before, but they now realized that it was quite normal. Hee, this guy is just trying to trick us. One of the martial god realm geniuses said disdainfully. Even though Lin Ling was quite strong, he was still a rising star. The thought of them having to listen to Lin Ling's words was quite unpleasant. I think he's just bluffing. Let's move forward. Another person calmly said. It was a great opportunity for them to let the second prince know that Lin Ling was only SSO. Let's wait a little longer. Even though this Lin Ling is only a candidate for the last batch of disciples this year, his words still make sense. A woman was rather cautious. You're just a coward. Did you just lose to him because he's strong? We were only testing his control of the realm force. I admit that he's strong in that aspect, but he's no match against us in terms of realm force. The martial god realm genius who spoke at the beginning strode forward. However, as soon as he moved, whoosh, countless birds flew out from the woods ahead, as if they were startled. The martial god realm genius halted in his tracks. Meanwhile, Lin Ling's calm voice could be heard from the carriage. Aren't you very strong? Go ahead. I guarantee that you won't live for more than the period it took an incense to burn. What? What? The martial god realm genius's eyes glittered. This Lin Ling was underestimating his strength. After all, he was the ruler of a realm. He could easily destroy a realm with his full strength. Let's see how I won't live for more than the period it took an incense to burn. Following this, the martial god realm genius continued to move forward. Rumble. At that instant, a rare phenomenon took place. The enormous woods ahead began to sink, and the ground began to sink too. A huge mouth appeared, and began to devour the ground. At that instant, everyone was startled as their figures began to tremble. Such a huge mouth. That mouth seemed to want to devour this world. Moreover, the terrifying aura it emitted was extremely shocking. Go on. Let's see if you can survive the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. Meanwhile, Lin Ling's calm voice echoed, causing the martial god realm genius called Chu Tian to fall to the ground with a thud. His face was very pale. If it wasn't for Lin Ling's reminder, he would have been dead. Thank you, Chu Tian immediately said. The other martial god geniuses didn't dare to underestimate Lin Ling. One of the girls asked, what is this? They all sensed that the huge mouth could easily swallow them. World-swallowing beast. At this moment the carriage came to a stop. Lin Ling stood in front of the carriage and said indifferently, realm-swallowing beast? What is that? Strange. With our strength, we can easily destroy a world, but that terrifying mouth gives us a terrifying feeling. Among the 4, an older and more composed youth looked at Lin Ling and said, Born in the chaos of the universe, it is a strange object of heaven and earth that can swallow a world. This is an immature body, so it hasn't reached a terrifying level yet. Lin Ling said indifferently. Then he waved his hand and said, "Let the army take a detour." World swallowing. This time, the four martial god geniuses' expressions changed drastically. Moreover, they finally remembered this ancient object. According to legend, this terrifying object was condensed by the chi of the universe. Once it appeared, it would wipe out all living beings. It had appeared once in the ancient era. At that time, it had swallowed more than 3,000 worlds, causing the martial god world to be mighty. This incident was also recorded in the history books. Unfortunately, this world-swallowing beast was too rare, so not many people knew about it. They couldn't help but look at Lin Ling. Lin Ling was younger than them. But he knew about these ancient secrets? "Sir, you must be this year's assessment disciple of the Resplendent Academy, right?" The woman asked with a smile. Her smile was quite beautiful. Lin Ling didn't understand why she asked this. He nodded and said, "Yes, I passed the assessment not long ago." Their hearts jerked when they heard this. Now that they thought about it, Lin Ling was their junior brother, but this junior brother was too miraculous. However, although I passed the assessment, I am not considered a candidate of the last generation. "I am already a candidate of the last generation," Lin Ling said. He didn't hide anything. After all, Qing province was very big. After these martial god geniuses met this time, it would be difficult to meet them again. "That's fine. Aren't you only a candidate of the last generation after passing the assessment?" The four people were even more surprised. After all, they were still candidates of the last generation. In order to remove the word candidate, they had worked hard for 100 years. "Idiot, is junior brother Lin Ling an exception?" The beautiful woman suddenly said. The other three people were stunned and nodded. When they looked at Lin Ling again, they were even more in awe. The last generation of the Resplendent Academy was someone they could only look up to. "Junior brother Lin Ling. No, senior brother Lin Ling. How did you detect the world-swallowing beast before?" The more calm young man asked. Lin Ling's soul power was huge. In addition to his 10,000 elephant demonic eyes and his knowledge, he could naturally detect the changes in the earth. However, he would definitely not tell this secret. He smiled and said, "The world-swallowing beast roams around the universe, but when it suddenly appears on the earth, there will be fluctuations in the void. Just pay attention to the fluctuations in the void." "Amazing," the four people said at the same time. They certainly understood this principle, but wanting to do so was difficult. They had to be alert to the slightest movement in the earth. After all, even if they could sense the changes in the earth, it would be too late. They would have been swallowed up. They needed to be aware of the fluctuations in the void. "All right, let's prepare to set off." However, with the appearance of the world-swallowing beast, there are also the Reaper aphids. These are the world-swallowing beast's companion beasts. We must be careful when facing them. Lin Ling looked into the distance and lightly said. At the same time, ancient black elephants began to crawl out from the sinking earth. These ancient elephants were as large as small mountains, but if one looked carefully, they weren't ancient elephants at all. Rather, they were masses of black sludge. These were the Reaper aphids. There were over a dozen of these black aphids. After they crawled out, they began to eat people. The army immediately retreated. The second prince and the others were pale with fright. They could only look at Lin Ling's group of 5. It looks like they are only at the first level of the World King realm. Luckily, they aren't too difficult. Let me do it. World King 7 directional fingers. The calm young man faintly smiled. He pointed out a finger. Blue light bloomed and the void exploded. A finger shot forward at high speed. Senior apprentice brother Lu. What a fierce World King 7 directional fingers. The others couldn't help but praise. The latter was at the 5th level of the World King realm, but within this boundary, he was still an extremely formidable existence. However, this martial art that could break through a world actually fell upon the black aphids. It only caused them to pause for a moment. What? Senior apprentice brother Lu felt disbelief. Were these aphids even more formidable than a world? Chapter 2414. Imperial Tomb. Scorpio constellation at this time. The Earth was constantly sinking. That giant mouth seemed to swallow everything. If they didn't deal with these black aphids soon, the army would be in danger. Attack! The others erupted with their ultimate skills, as if the ruler of a world had arrived. Pop, pop, pop. Waves of energy rolled out from the earth, as if the heavens and earth were falling apart. Beneath this all-out attack, the black aphids died one by one, turning into a puddle of mud. Are these really aphids? They are simply giant beasts. Luckily, we have these martial god geniuses. The army behind them exclaimed in surprise. The four martial god geniuses couldn't help but laugh. They were finally in the limelight for once. They're too slow. However, just as they were laughing, Lin Ling poured cold water on them. This caused the four martial god geniuses to be unwilling. The youth called Chu Tian frowned. These death god aphids have extremely strong defenses. We've already used a low second-grade martial skill. Otherwise we wouldn't have been able to break through them. His words were mixed with unwillingness. He thought that Lin Ling's words were too simple. Lin Ling shook his head, not explaining. He shot forwards like a swallow. In the air, he drew his ancient sword and slashed down at the last death god aphid. A single sword cannot cut down these aphids. Seeing this, the martial god geniuses shook their heads. However, a miracle occurred. Lin Ling's world essence didn't use any martial arts. It was only an ordinary third-stage World King Realm world essence. However, under this sword strike, the aphid trembled and was split in half. With this, the four martial god geniuses' pupils shrank. The army sucked in a breath of cold air. Lin Ling drew back his sword and floated in the air. These aphids have a surface like mud, but they also have flaws. If I can find a still and motionless piece of mud, then I can kill them in a single strike without using any martial skills. How is this possible? The delicate woman cried out in alarm. This was because the mud on the surface of the aphids was constantly flowing. It was impossible to find a motionless one. Thus, she couldn't help but be surprised. She even thought that although Lin Ling looked young and delicate on the surface, there was a 10,000-year-old monster hidden in his heart. Otherwise, how could he be so abnormal? Let's go. Lin Ling didn't say anything more. He turned around and left. The four martial god geniuses looked at Lin Ling's back with even more reverence. The army took a detour and headed in another direction. Inside the carriage, the second prince and the beautiful girl looked at Lin Ling in awe. They never thought that Lin Ling, who was the youngest, would surpass the other martial gods in every aspect. Big brother, why are you so powerful? Are all martial artists so respected? The beautiful girl noticed that Lin Ling was easy to talk to, so she wasn't so restrained. Looking at the young girl, Lin Ling thought of his son Lin Yi. He also thought of the fire spirit princess. He smiled and said, "Learning martial arts may seem glorious, but in fact, it is accompanied by many dangers. If one is not careful, it is very common for one's soul to dissipate. So sometimes it is better to be immortal." Since Big Brother is so strong, he must have experienced many disasters. The beautiful girl asked. Lin Ling nodded. Indeed, he had experienced many life and death situations in his life. There was no end to it. Others saw that he was strong and yearned for his life of being respected. But who knew that he had worked hard behind the scenes? Little Yen, it is fate that we met. I will teach you a set of cultivation techniques. Moreover, I have a martial god fruit that can change your talent. With that cultivation technique, you should be able to reach the strength of a realm lord in the future. Then, Lin Ling looked at the beautiful girl and said. The beautiful girl was stunned and extremely excited. Why aren't you thanking Senior Lin Ling? The second prince beside her knew that his sister's luck had come. She had met a benefactor. Disciple greets master. The beautiful girl reacted and hurriedly knelt down. Lin Ling shook his head helplessly. He was just giving her some pointers. He couldn't say that he was a master. He immediately helped the girl up. The beautiful girl looked at Lin Ling with even more admiration. She had truly met a benefactor. As for the four martial god geniuses outside the carriage, their eyes flashed. After knowing each other, they felt that Lin Ling was unfathomably deep. He was clearly at the third stage of the World King realm, but the feeling he gave off wasn't so. If we ask him for some pointers, do you think he will agree? That would be too shameful. After all, he is younger than us. If you don't ask, I will. Who says I won't ask? I just happen to have some doubts about my current martial arts. I hope he can give me some pointers. Imperial Tomb, Scorpio constellation. This was the goal of the army. A day later, the army arrived at the Imperial Tomb. The dragon energy here was extremely rich. Ancient buildings covered the entire mountain range. It was quiet and quiet, giving off an extremely mysterious feeling. We've arrived. The second prince waved his hand, and the army stopped. Then, a guard held up the imperial jade seal and carefully knelt down. In front of them was a giant altar. Imperial incense wafted through the air, as if the sound of an emperor was drifting through the air. The entire army, tens of millions of people, all knelt down in unison. Now was the time for the second prince to offer a sacrifice to the heavens and announce it to the world. At this moment, the second prince was wearing a neat dragon robe. He took the imperial jade seal and walked towards the altar. Throughout the entire process, his face was extremely solemn. Lin Ling and the rest stood calmly. Naturally, they would not kneel. However, just as the second prince was about to offer his sacrifice, Lin Ling's eyes flickered. Then, a cold smile appeared on his face. Smoke drifted out of the cave in front of them. A large number of soldiers in black armor appeared. Their bodies were filled with dense demonic energy. Sun Yaoyang, how have you been? A cold yell could be heard. A middle-aged man in a long black robe appeared in the distance. He held a huge saber that was taller than a person and walked over step by step. Bang, bang, bang. Following his footsteps, the ground shook. Great General Tuoshui? The second prince's expression changed drastically. He obviously knew that middle-aged man. Hand over the imperial jade seal. The emperor of this world can only be the crown prince. The middle-aged man in the black robe sneered. His body was filled with smoke, and he looked even more demonic. Big brother, those are the crown prince's men. At this moment, the beautiful girl on the other side said to Lin Ling. Lin Ling nodded. This was not the first time he had seen something like this. When the throne changed, there would definitely be other crown princes competing for it. It was no wonder that he had not seen other crown princes since he came here. Hand over the imperial jade seal. The sinister middle-aged man shouted again. He looked at the beautiful girl with a sinister gaze. Princess, this time, you have finally fallen into my hands. His gaze caused the beautiful girl to tremble. She subconsciously hid behind Lin Ling. The sinister middle-aged man only glanced at Lin Ling and the rest. Then, he ignored them and raised the huge saber in his hand. Kill! The surrounding black-armored soldiers charged forward like a demonic army. The demonic energy formed a huge demonic scorpion. It bared its fangs and brandished its claws. It was extremely terrifying. Kill! The second prince's army also charged forward. Chapter 24:15. Battle Tumor Water General, unable to withstand a single blow. Sun Yaoyang, you don't have the qualifications to call yourself king. The black-armored middle-aged man advanced once more, his expression icy cold. As for the second prince, he looked at the middle-aged man, and then at his own army. His complexion became even more dignified. This was because his army was beginning to retreat in defeat. He had long heard that the crown prince had turned into a monster. Now that he saw it, it was true. If you follow the crown prince, do you want to become neither a human nor a monster? The second prince angrily shouted. Die! You speak too much nonsense. The black-armored middle-aged man disdained to speak further. He grasped his saber and threw himself at the second prince. Along the way, his monster energy soared into the heavens, and a giant black scorpion appeared behind him. This scorpion's tail burned with a demonic green flame. It raised it high, wanting to kill the second prince. In your dreams. At this time, Chu Tian and the others attacked. The strength of a fifth-level world king completely erupted, unable to withstand a single blow. However, the black-armored middle-aged man stopped. Then he stomped on the ground, causing it to crack open. Bang! A terrifying shockwave erupted. Green monster flames splashed out in all directions. Puff! Chu Tian and the others immediately spat out a mouthful of blood and were sent flying backwards. The delicate young woman cried out in alarm. 6th stage World King realm? Moreover, his talent is at least 9th grade. Another person shouted out. Then they all crashed to the ground. It was clear that they were not the black-armored middle-aged man's match. After all, this black-armored middle-aged man's boundary was higher than theirs and his talent was greater. How could they be his match? I already knew that someone from Martial God World would come to help. Unfortunately, this person is too useless. Second Prince, you can die now. The black-armored middle-aged man coldly shouted, and threw himself at the Second Prince once more. As for Chu Tian and the others, their complexions changed. They wanted to crawl up, but they discovered that the monster flames on their bodies continued to burn them, making it impossible for them to stand. These monster flames were a bit strange. Royal brother, the beautiful young woman cried out in worry. However, she didn't discover that Lin Ling had already disappeared. A sword appeared in the sky, and in the next moment he arrived in front of the Second Prince. Clang! A sword stabbed out. Dragon painting finishing touch. At the same time, the black-armored middle-aged man's saber slashed out. Monster flames roared around it, but it was evenly matched with Lin Ling's sword. Seeing this, the Second Prince's expression changed drastically. He didn't die. The black-armored man's complexion changed. As he waved his hand, it was like he had ignited the most ancient flame of the universe. Bang! The multicolored flames erupted, crazily burning. As the strange monster flames approached, they were all extinguished, leaving behind only the multicolored flames. Within the flames, Lin Ling walked out step by step, like a dazzling god of flames. At this moment, everyone's breathing stopped. Their eyes widened in disbelief. His talent seems to be a 9th grade profound body. Sigh. The 4 martial god geniuses' pupils fiercely trembled. They didn't think that besides being mysterious, Lin Ling's talent was also so terrifying. However, Lin Ling was the last generation disciple that Resplendent Academy had made an exception to recruit. He must have his own unique points. At this moment, all of them came to their senses. Pa pa pa. The dazzling flames continued to burn. The temperature around the imperial tomb rose by a great deal. Everyone was silent. But a moment later, a faint laughter sounded out. You have some strength. You were actually able to block my talent. With this strength, you can be considered a martial god genius. Unfortunately, you met me. No matter how much of a genius you are still a dead man. After all, although our talents are the same, my boundary is higher than yours. Could it be that you want to jump 3 levels to fight? On the other side, the black-armored middle-aged man appeared, staring at Lin Ling, and said indifferently. Lin Ling walked out from the dazzling flames, and pulled out the ancient sword on his back. His eyes were filled with mockery. Sorry, I was planning to do that. Sorry. He didn't say anything. The ancient sword in his hand exploded with flames. The flames continued to condense, forming a crescent moon slash that slashed forward. This slash seemed to be able to sever 10 realms. At this moment, he had secretly merged the boundary spirits in his 2 Dantian, reaching the 6th level of boundary origin realm. Moreover, he had suppressed time and space within. In this way, his boundary was no weaker than his opponent's. His talent was no weaker than his opponent's. What was there to fear? Bang! Space and time seemed to have been severed. The black-armored middle-aged man's expression changed. What a powerful boundary energy! Bang! The broadsword in his hand slashed forward. Chapter 24:16. Entering the Imperial Tomb Polypola. Countless demonic flames appeared, condensing into giant poisonous scorpions that rushed towards Lin Ling's sword. Unfortunately, the black-armored man had underestimated Lin Ling's boundary. He thought that Lin Ling was only at the 3rd stage of the World King realm. But what he didn't know was that Lin Ling's boundary was no weaker than his own. In fact, Lin Ling was even a level higher. Bang! A deafening sound filled the air. The poisonous scorpions were all cut apart, and the green flames vanished. As for the crescent moonlight, it continued onwards, cutting straight towards the black-armored man. What? The black-armored man's complexion changed. Where was his high and lofty demeanor from before? He grasped the saber in his hand, and condensed all of his world essence into a slash. Only then was he barely able to cut apart the crescent moonlight. His blood tumbled and his face paled. Lin Ling stepped forwards, his expression indifferent. Aren't you a high and lofty sixth-stage world king? Why are you in such a distressed state? I thought that His Majesty the Crown Prince's men were some sort of powerhouse. But now it seems that they are nothing more than mediocre. Lin Ming's words were thick with ridicule, causing the black-armored man to feel humiliated. His eyes filled with anger. The surroundings became even more silent. In particular, the four martial god geniuses. At this moment, they felt as if they had seen some sort of miracle. After all, Lin Ling had jumped 3 levels to fight. Even in their academy, this was an extremely rare sight. I'll kill you! Exclamation point. The black-armored man shouted out loud. His aura erupted from his body, wild and tyrannical. His waist bent, and many tumors grew out from his back. These tumors flowed with a fishy smell. As the water fell to the ground, it turned into demonic flames. This was his innate mystic body talent, the flame scorpion celestial body. It was said that this talent came from an extremely distant world, and was left behind by a demon scorpion martial artist who had transformed into a human. This demon scorpion had once slaughtered 100 worlds in a single move. Seeing this, many people were shocked. They were all startled. This great General Tuan Shui was too fierce. Beneath the black-armored man's aura, the earth constantly shook. He was even more terrifying than the ruler of a world. Are you afraid now? I didn't use my true strength, so you could be arrogant for a moment. But now that I have used the flame scorpion celestial body, you can die proud. The black-armored middle-aged man's voice was extremely low and deep, shaking many people's eardrums to the point of pain, making them even more fearful. You talk a bit too much nonsense. I just want to say, were you the only one who didn't use your true strength earlier? Lin Ling's expression was still calm. He could see that the other party had already demonized. A powerful martial artist had changed his innate talent, giving him a demonic aura. Therefore, the tyrannical song in his hand trembled, and the sword emitted an ear-piercing sound, becoming even more dazzling. After that, Lin Ling ceaselessly swung his sword as if he was holding a brush and painting, and wisps of a mysterious aura effused out from him. This was the last level of the Black Sword record, Black Sword. This was the sword of the Sword Emperor. What a terrifying power. Even on our side we can feel the pressure. Our weapons are trembling. This martial god genius was actually hiding a trump card when facing the luminous water great general. Everyone in the second prince's army cried out in surprise. They just realized that the young man had said that he alone was enough to protect the second prince. And that was indeed the case. Trying to be mysterious, let me tear you apart. The middle-aged man in black armor stared at the sword in Lin Ling's hand, and a feeling of unease rose in his heart. He knew that he could not let this young man use his sword again, or the situation would become very troublesome. Whoosh! He pounced over at lightning speed, leaving behind a fishy demonic fire wherever he passed. In the next moment, he appeared in front of Lin Ling, and slammed his palm heavily. If he hit, Lin Ling would probably be smashed to pieces. Papa! The entire rising sun boundary was in turmoil at this moment. However, Lin Ling seemed to have not heard it, and continued to swing his sword. When the middle-aged man's huge palm was right in front of him, his pupils constricted. Thousands of sword moves had finally merged into a single sword. The aura of the ultimate sword Dao swept out in a mighty manner. Black sword. Rumble. The huge black sword slashed out, and the battle aura, killing intent, and sword aura were extremely terrifying. A burly giant appeared behind Lin Ling. It was the Sword Emperor. In fact, this was the first time that Lin Ling had used this sword move. A third-grade origin world martial art. The middle-aged man in black armor finally realized just how terrifying this sword move was. He never imagined that this third-stage world king youth would not only have a fierce origin world martial art and talent, but even his martial arts were so fierce. No. Roar. The middle-aged man roared. His palm was cut off by the black sword, and his body was cut into pieces, falling to the ground like rocks. Moreover, the giant black sword didn't stop. It was like the sword of a death god, passing through the black-armored army, and causing countless monsters to die. Finally, the sword pierced through the ancient walls of the imperial tomb, leaving behind a clear black character. Then, it gradually disappeared into the distant skies. All around, there was a deathly silence. After a moment, gasps of surprise sounded out. The morale of the second prince's army was greatly boosted. The remaining black-armored soldiers were panic-stricken. They never imagined that an ordinary-looking youth would be able to ruin their scheme. Retreat! It wasn't known who shouted this, but the monster army retreated. They ran towards the walls of the imperial tomb, disappearing into them. Seeing this, the second prince and the others finally let out a sigh of relief. Thank you, thank you. The second prince was extremely grateful. Bowing towards Lin Ling put away his sword. He smiled and waved his hand. This is my mission to begin with. Your Majesty, second prince. You should hurry up and offer your sacrifice to the heavens. Okay. With Lin Ling by his side, the imperial jade seal offering sacrifice to the heavens went much smoother. After the sacrifice to the heavens ended, Lin Ling could clearly feel that there was a mysterious aura around the second prince protecting him. This was a universal dragon aura. Lin Ling had seen it not too long ago, when he was a carp leaping over the dragon gate. It seemed that this second prince's ancestors were related to dragons. Senior apprentice brother Lin Ling fierce. Chu Tian and the others also walked over, all of them praising him. I was just lucky. Lin Ling casually smiled. He had fought with the third-generation disciples, the 36 world kings, and the latter were at the 7th stage of the world king realm. There was no need to mention this great general Tuoshui. Our mission has finally been completed. Then Chu Tian and the others revealed relaxed expressions. Although the mission was mainly completed by Lin Ling, they could still return and report on their mission. It was even possible for them to become last-generation disciples. Good, then we'll take our leave. Lin Ling didn't want to stay any longer, because his mission was different. That was to kill Blazing Lip World King. Then, he bid farewell to the second prince, and looked towards the walls of the imperial tomb. Then he walked over. There was a crack in the wall, and Lin Ling followed it. As for the second prince and the beautiful young girl, they looked at Lin Ling, their eyes filled with excitement. Lin Ling was their benefactor. The monster energy in the imperial tomb is very thick. Perhaps Blazing Lip World King is inside. Are we going to kill him? If we can kill him, the Academy's rewards will be even better. With just us, there's no need to even think about it. The previous great general almost killed us, much less Blazing Lip World King. Let's go back. Chapter 24:17. Evil Flame God 6 Transformations. After all, Lin Ling was someone who could jump 3 levels to fight. At this time, Lin Ling followed the crack. This was an ancient cave with statues placed all around. They seemed to be statues of evil gods. They should have been built by the second prince's ancestors. As he continued forwards, Lin Ling saw many giant imperial tombs. These were probably the tombs of the Sun family's past emperors. Not bothering with them, Lin Ling looked for another passage and continued forwards. When he entered the next hall, he saw many coffins placed within. These coffins seemed to sense life. At this time, all of their lids were pushed open. Then one after another, tall figures climbed out of the coffins. These were tomb guardians. In their previous life, they had been formidable martial artists. After their deaths, they had been refined with a secret technique, leaving behind their formidable strength. This was a type of zombie that was even more formidable than a golden zombie. Unfortunately, Lin Ling didn't even glance at them. He continued forwards and punched out, the strength of his divinity and demon body erupting. Get out of my way! A fist that could topple mountains and overturn seas swept out, overturning a massive number of zombies. And Lin Ling was in this group of zombies, leisurely walking forwards. If the second prince and the others were here, they would definitely be shocked. This was because these were the ancestral guards of their Sun family. Each one of them was in existence comparable to a world king. This Sun family's background isn't small at all. No wonder Resplendent Academy wants to help them. Lin Ling said as he looked at the paintings on the walls. These paintings recorded the deeds of the Sun family, from one generation to the next. A long, long time ago, a powerhouse had been born from the Sun family. This powerhouse was an extremely famous existence in martial god world. Later he perished. The great Azure Divine Dynasty remembered his hard work, and thus decided to protect the Sun family for generations. There are many martial arts recorded here. They should have been left behind by the Sun family's ancestor. Unfortunately, they are useless to me. Lin Ling looked around, and then shook his head. But soon his eyes brightened. On the left side of the wall, there was a statue. This statue had 3 heads and 6 arms. It had sharp fangs and angry eyes, giving off a ferocious feeling. Each of its 6 arms was holding an ancient book. Most importantly, this book was burning with flames. With just a glance, Lin Ling knew that this book was extraordinary. He quickly waved his left hand, and the book floated over. There were several large words written on the book. Evil Flame God 6 Transformations. This was a boundary origin martial art. Its grade was unknown, but it was definitely not weaker than the 3rd grade. Its cultivation method was extremely strange. It was burning its world essence. Burn world origin. World origin 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 world origin origin world origin origin world 9 transformations trans world origin. Those who ignited their realm essence did not have to die. The after effect was that they would not be able to use their realm essence for a short period of time. World origin transformations trans 6 transformations trans 6 transformations transformations 5 transformations trans world. It had 6 transformations. Evil Flame Transformation, Heaven Shocking Transformation, Wind and Cloud Transformation, Heaven and Earth Transformation, and Heaven and Earth Transformation. With every breakthrough in realm, the amount of energy required to burn the world essence would increase by 2-fold. Of course, the time required would also decrease by 2-fold. Its advantage was that after using it, the martial artist would only be exhausted and would not die. This cultivation method suits me very well. Lin Ling couldn't help but be overjoyed. He just happened to be lacking a fire tribute realm source martial art. Who knew that when he dozed off, the heavens would send him a pillow? It seemed that his luck wasn't that bad after all. This trip is worth it just based on this martial art. Lin Ling hurriedly opened the book, and the 10,000 mammoths' demonic eyes appeared. With a retentive memory, he easily learned how to cultivate it. Then, he placed the book back on the statue and sat down cross-legged. This martial art seemed powerful, but the conditions to cultivate it were very high. The first condition was to awaken the divine body. Awaken divine physique was a talent of a higher level than Xian physique. My time and space divine steel is a 9th level Xian body. Although I can't cultivate the evil flame god's 6th transformation successfully, the first transformation shouldn't be too difficult. Lin Ling smiled. The 10,000 mammoths' demonic eyes appeared, and he continued to comprehend. Time quietly passed like this. After an unknown period of time, Lin Ling stood up, a smile on his face. He had successfully cultivated the first transformation, the evil god transformation. If he burned the realm essence in his 2 dantians, he could easily battle a 7th stage world king, and even kill him. With this martial art in my hands, the power it can display surpasses that of others. The 36 world kings are very unlucky. The current me is no weaker than you. Lin Ling stood up and continued forwards. Because he had 2 dantians, when he burned his realm essence, his power would be much greater than others. And this was the advantage of the Chaos Divine formula. Following the cave, Lin Ling continued upwards. What surprised him was that he had arrived at the highest peak of the Imperial Mausoleum. The aura here was even greater, and the dragon aura was vast and mighty. Moreover, there was a massive black palace at the summit. There was a massive amount of black armored monster soldiers all around, and from time to time, powerful martial artists would land on the summit. Why did Flaming Lip World King invite us here? These martial artists didn't seem to be from the Rising Sun world, but they were all either monsters or demons. Their auras caused one's heart to palpitate. This Flaming Lip World King isn't from this world, but he seems to have seized His Majesty the Crown Prince's mortal body, and is using it to stir up trouble. Lin Ling walked out of the cave, faintly looking at the Black Palace. Then he shook his head and waved his right hand. A black cloak covered his body, and he slowly walked towards the Black Palace. I heard that Flaming Lip World King wants to refine the Flaming Lip bead and asked us to come help him. Flaming Lip World King's vision isn't bad. He's actually bitterly cultivating in this world. This world has a long history, but the martial artists here aren't too strong. He must have found many treasures here. However, this world is protected by the Great Azure Divine Dynasty. It's best if we be careful. The Great Azure Divine Dynasty is nothing. No matter how many people come, I will kill them all. As they walked forward, the surrounding martial artists all spoke with indifference. They were clearly rogue cultivators from the myriad worlds. Lin Ling followed the crowd. Under the cloak, his lips curled into a sneer. He had come here to find Flaming Lip World King. So he had disguised himself and entered. Sir, don't you think so? The nearby martial artists who cultivated the demonic path, and the demonic path couldn't sense Lin Ling at all. An extremely fierce-looking martial artist laughed at Lin Ling. You're right. The Great Azure Divine Dynasty is nothing. Lin Ling's voice was cold as he lightly replied. Haha, great minds think alike. The martial artist still didn't know that Lin Ling had come here to kill Flaming Lip World King. I heard that Great General Tuoshui was killed right below the Imperial Tomb. If Flaming Lip World King hadn't reached a critical moment in his cultivation, he would have already attacked. Great General Tuoshui was also killed? His strength is extremely great. It's the martial god geniuses of the three great academies. As they continued forward, they saw many armored warriors in front of them coldly speaking. How bold! As long as Flaming Lip World King says a single word, I will immediately take action for him. Don't worry. You will have a chance because Flaming Lip World King will use the Flaming Lip bead to find the murderer's whereabouts. Good. I want to be the first to kill the murderer. The crowd soon arrived at the main hall. In front of the main hall, a tall man was sitting there. This person's entire body was covered in darkness, and it was impossible to see his appearance. However, strange flames burned on the surface of his body, as if he were a flame god. Chapter 24:18. I'm the murderer. Since everyone is here, that's good. But before I refine the Flaming Lip bead, I need to find those murderers, especially the one who killed my Tuoshui great general. I want to swallow him alive. The man let out a fiendish voice. He stretched out his hands, and a mysterious bead appeared. A barrier floated out, as if it was searching for something. TSK, the Flaming Lip World King is right. Once we find the murderer, we will swallow him alive. These martial god geniuses of the Azure Province's three great academies are too arrogant. They think they can do whatever they want just because they have a bit of strength. They don't know that we have tempered ourselves in the myriad worlds and defeated countless powerhouses. When did it become the turn of those fledgling juniors to be so arrogant? The other martial artists snickered. With a single glance, one could tell that they were demon kings of the myriad worlds, Fey emperors. Then they quietly waited for the results. Because the Tuoshui Great General was created by the Flaming Lip World King, he possessed the Flaming Lip World King's demonic flames. Thus, the Flaming Lip bead could find out who killed the Tuoshui Great General. But in the next moment, the man let out a cry of surprise. Then the murderer is here? The hall immediately fell silent. Everyone's eyes widened as they looked at each other in disbelief, because they were looking for the murderer, and the murderer was here? What a joke! Flaming Lip World King, your Flaming Lip bead shouldn't have made a mistake, right? A Fey Emperor laughed. Hearing this, the Flaming Lip World King fell silent. In truth, he was also puzzled about this point. But the Flaming Lip bead shouldn't have made a mistake. The Flaming Lip bead didn't make a mistake. As everyone was puzzled, an indifferent voice floated out. The hall became even more silent. Who is it? A martial artist with surging demonic energy roared. His gaze turned to a corner where a cloaked man was sitting. He was holding wine and drinking it in a drunken manner. He knew that it was the cloaked man who had spoken. In front of the Flaming Lip World King, when did it become your turn to speak? The martial artist's body exploded, turning into a demon that attacked the cloaked man. Woo-woo. It was like a large demonic cloud was dancing in the air. Impudent. The other martial artists coldly said. Pa. However, as soon as that cultivator approached the cloaked figure, an arm stretched out from within the cloak, and suddenly grabbed the huge ball of devil cloud. Moreover, a short moment later, the devil cloud revealed its true form, and its true form was firmly held by the neck as well. A nest of snakes and rats. Looks like you're not a good person either. The cloaked man muttered to himself as he exerted a little force with his arm. With a bang, the devil's neck was crushed. Chapter 24:19. Mysterious Killer. Do you think you've won? I was only careless before. But now I will make you wish you were dead. Flaming Lip Bead. Die. Now that things had come to this, either you die or I live. Thus, the Fiery Lip World King had also erupted with all his trump cards. The fiery lip bead that was floating not too far away was sucked towards him. Then his body exploded, turning into a terrifying cloud of demonic flames. Within the cloud of flames, an eyeball stared at the earth like a fey emperor. This eyeball was the fiery lip bead. It was clear that by borrowing this treasure, his demonic flames had crazily risen. In the 7th stage of the World King realm, no ordinary martial artist was his match. A heaven-shaking demonic energy gushed out. Everyone in the hall was filled with dread. They all fled from the palace. Flaming Lip World King was enraged. He feared that the entire Rising Sun world would suffer a calamity. Who doesn't know how to boast? Up until now, I've met many, but unfortunately, they all lost to me. Die. Lin Ling sneered. The flames on his body burned even brighter. Space was burned away, filling the skies with flames. Moreover, time seemed to freeze, because even time was being burned away. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Gradually, the flames on Lin Ling's body began to become wild and tyrannical, making him seem like a monster. Demonic Flame God 6 transformations. First transformation, Demonic Flame Change. By burning his world essence, he had forcefully increased the strength of his world essence. This meant that Lin Ling's current boundary was the 7th stage of the World King realm. This was a terrifying increase. This was also Lin Ling's strongest attack besides the Space and Time Divine Tablet. Crackle crackle. The palace had already turned into a sea of fire. On one side was a strange green sea of fire, and on the other side was a multicolored sea of fire. It was like two flame gods were colliding. Flaming Lip World King, your demonic flames are quite good. According to the legends, this was a battle between the most ancient flame god and the water god. The wisp of flame left behind by the flame god can be considered a relatively ancient flame. Unfortunately, you have encountered me, the universe's first flame, the flame of space and time. Die. Lin Ling's hair became multicolored. His voice became even more demonic. Flaming Lip Bead. Invincible in all directions. Exterminate in all directions. Kill in all directions. On the other side, Blazing Lip World King also roared. His demonic flames grew larger with the wind, suppressing Lin Ling. He didn't believe that a mere 3rd-level World King Jr. could win against someone like him, who possessed the flaming lip bead. Rumble. The two great flames occupied the entire world and collided violently at this moment. Time seemed to have stopped at this moment. Boom. However, it did not last long. In the next moment, a huge wave surged out and turned into a colorful mushroom cloud. The entire Imperial Mausoleum was destroyed and burned to ashes. Even the Rising Sun world was shaken violently. How terrifying. Everyone hid far away, their faces full of shock. A battle of that level was not something they could get close to. Is the young man dead? After a long period of silence, someone asked in a low voice. Unfortunately, no one replied to him. Everyone was looking at the fiery sky, quietly waiting for the result. Who died in the clash between the two infernal gods? That young man is dead for sure. Blazing Lip World King once roamed the southern divine land unhindered. Even a 9th-level World King powerhouse chased after him, but still failed. How could he lose to a late-stage talent? Not too long after, an old man said with certainty. His words caused many people to nod. The Blazing Lip World King was extremely famous in the southern divine land. Thus, they believed in his strength even more. Pa! At this time, the sound of light footsteps echoed out, causing everyone's hearts to skip a beat. As they looked up, their complexions immediately changed. In the broken ruins, all kinds of energy still swept out. Flames soared into the sky, and a tall figure walked out. He had a mocking smile on his face, and a pair of cold eyes looked at everyone. Wherever he passed, no one dared to look him in the eyes. The young man had walked out. It was clear that the Blazing Lip World King had lost. This huge guess caused everyone's faces to turn pale. The Blazing Lip World King of his generation, an outstanding 7th-level World King, had actually lost to a nameless youth. How was this possible? I give you all an incense stick of time to leave this place, otherwise you will all die. Die. Tilting his head, Lin Ling looked at the people in the distance with interest. Ah. Everyone's jaws dropped open. Fear spread through their hearts. In the next moment, without another word, they all scattered. What a motley crew! Die. Lin Ling curled his lips. He didn't kill them all because his mission was to kill the Blazing Lip World King. As for those evil spirits and monsters, that had nothing to do with him. Moreover, the myriad worlds were so vast, and there were many such evil spirits and monsters. He couldn't kill them all. Then, he looked at the skies and slowly left. And above the earth, the mysterious flames of space and time continued to burn the imperial tomb. The temperature of these flames seemed to melt the entire rising sun world. In a distant place, Lin Ling flew into the skies. When he used the evil flame divine transformation for the first time, it was truly formidable. It allowed him to possess the strength of a 7th-level World King, and he had easily killed the Blazing Lip World King. Now his mission had been completed. As for Lin Ling's current strength, he could easily kill an ordinary 7th-level World King. As for the 3rd-generation World King, Lin Ling guessed that even if he couldn't kill him, he wouldn't fear him. Blazing Lip Bead. Then, a flame bead appeared in Lin Ling's right hand. This bead was like an eye, emitting a rich fire attribute world essence energy. It was said that this was the essence of a fire attribute world. When a fire attribute world was about to be born but failed midway, this world would explode, turning into countless fire attribute energies. The Blazing Lip Bead was one of these energies. My Chaos Divine formula can refine any treasure. This Blazing Lip Bead can also be refined. This bead can increase the level of my time flames. Lin Ling smiled. There were additional harvests on this trip. Very good. If his time flames could increase and reach the level of an awakened divine body, then all he needed to do was increase his divinity demon body. At that time, the Chaos Divine formula would reach the 2nd level. Thinking like this, Lin Ling quickened his pace, hurrying towards Martial God World. But soon he frowned. His sharp soul force could sense that a mysterious aura had locked onto him. Moreover, there were many of these auras, as if they came from the chaos of the universe. Since you've come, why be so sneaky? Lin Ling stopped, frowning as he looked at the skies. The skies were still quiet. Clouds drifted about, looking extremely ordinary. If you don't want to come out, then I'm leaving, Lin Ling said calmly, and was about to take a step forward. What a sharp fellow. At this time, the skies were forcefully torn apart, revealing the chaos of the universe. A figure slowly walked down the road of the martial god. This person wore a black robe and had a mask on his face. He gave off an extremely mysterious feeling. I wanted to give him a pleasant surprise, but I never thought that he would discover me first. What a mistake! Ka. On the other side, another crack appeared in the skies, and another figure walked out. As far as they knew, these mysterious experts were all lords of realms. At the very least, they controlled 5 realms. Every single one of them was an overlord. Your sword is sharp, but your boundary isn't high. I don't believe you can block my 7th stage World King strength. The black-robed assassin held his sword and said coldly, "Get out of here." Lin Ling angrily shouted. This was because he wasn't an ordinary 7th-level World King. At this moment, the world essence of the 2 Dantians fused, forming a terrifying sword. You are not at the 4th stage of the World King realm, the black-robed assassin exclaimed when he sensed the surging energy of the world essence. Crack! A terrifying power attacked him, and the sword in his hand broke inch by inch. Furthermore, Lin Ling's sword had cut him into 2 halves. Plop! As his body fell to the ground, everyone in the imperial city felt their hearts violently skip a beat. In the blink of an eye, two powerhouses had died. As for the remaining assassin, his eyes flashed, as if he wanted to see through everything about Lin Ling. This was because when he first chased down Lin Ling had been nothing more than an ant, a mouse that had been forced into a dead end. But now he discovered that Lin Ling was far more terrifying. Did Demon Guardian Master really die in your hands? The assassin couldn't help but ask. Yes, and the next one will be you. Lin Ling floated in the skies. In his left palm, multicolored flames appeared, ancient and boundless. As these flames appeared, the entire imperial city began to shake. Moreover, around Lin Ling's body, a divine light protected him. This divine light was extremely sacred, as if it came from the primal chaos of the universe. Awaken the divine body. The assassin's voice sharpened. Divine light protecting the body. This was the symbol of an awakened divine body. It could be said that with an awakened divine body, Lin Ling was invincible within the 4th level of the World King realm. Moreover, the power of the world essence that Lin Ling erupted with seemed to surpass the 4th level of the World King realm. This meant that Lin Ling was an invincible existence within the 7th level of the World King realm. Such a difficult character to deal with was actually treated as an ant or a mouse by these assassins. Why aren't you leaving? The assassin knew that it would be difficult to resist. He slowly took off his mask, revealing an old face. King Tang. Someone recognized the assassin. This was a powerhouse with an illustrious reputation in the infinite worlds. No one thought that his true identity would be an assassin. You clearly have the strength to leave here, but Lin Ling came to kill us. You should know that there are countless powerhouses in Rising Sun World right now. You should leave immediately, and not seek revenge on us. The old man sighed. He had killed people all year round, and today he would be killed. Chapter 24-29. Are you the last one? Heavenly Snow King is invincible in the 7th layer of the World King realm. Long Patian is also invincible. The martial god world is indeed much more powerful than the other worlds. The 3rd generation is already so powerful. What about the 2nd generation? Look, their martial arts are all 3rd grade. TSK. A 3rd grade martial art requires one to comprehend for 1,000 years. That's you. The other geniuses don't need to do that. After all, they haven't even practiced martial arts for more than 1,000 years. All around the ruins, all sorts of discussions rose and fell. Some of the older experts shook their heads helplessly. It was as if they could already see that not long later, these monstrous existences would surpass them. Long Patian, you still don't need to use your sword? After exchanging a few more blows, Heavenly Snow King felt his blood and chi churning. The boundary spirit in his dantian became unstable. This Long Patian was indeed quite capable. When you use your sword, use your sword. Who knew that Long Patian would be extremely tyrannical? He didn't use his sword. Instead, he waved his fists and pounced forward again. His aura directly caused the Rising Sun realm to sway unceasingly. Even the sky was filled with chaotic scenes. 3rd fist, Dragon Ancestor Fist. There was a dragon roaring. Everywhere it passed, crackling sounds would be heard. The sky was directly split open. The power of the boundary spirit was extremely vast. Moreover, the ultimate martial path had reached the minute subtlety realm. Chaotic energy was erupting. Seeing how terrifying that fist was, Heavenly Snow King also knew that he couldn't avoid it. Of course, with his identity as the 3rd generation, he disdained to avoid it because it was too shameful. Flying Snow Sky. With a roar, the sky was filled with snow mist. A large number of snowmen charged forward, accompanied by Heavenly Snow King's fist. Pop, pop, pop. The power of the 2 great boundary spirits erupted, knocking many people over. As for Heavenly Snow King, he was sent flying backwards. His expression became even more serious, because Long Potion's martial arts comprehension was much stronger than his. Long Patian, let me give you a piece of advice. You better use your dragon sword. Otherwise, don't blame me if you die. Heavenly Snow King's hands began to move as if he was going to use some powerful ultimate skill. Heavenly Snow King has been forced into a desperate situation. Everyone could see that Tian Shui Wang was slightly weaker than Long Patian, and this result was very shocking. After all, Tian Shui Wang had suppressed all the heroes before. You want to burn your realm essence? However, you only have this method. Long Patian said indifferently. Tianxue monarch shook his head and said, "This is just a battle for the demon heart. Burning my world essence is the same as burning my potential. I'm not that stupid." Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Omega Sword Dao. This kid's comprehension of the martial Dao is not weak. Luo Riyao cried out in surprise. Last time in the Eight Gods' Heavenly Palace, he had not seen Lin Ling use any martial arts. But today, he realized that he had underestimated him. Whoosh 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 osh 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 osh. Moreover, it's the subtle boundary. The blue-clothed old man solemnly said. He knew that Lin Ling's sword Dao was fierce. What use is that? Watch as I break your sword. Long Potion's savage voice echoed out. You should have died, but what a pity. You were so afraid of death that you ran away, causing the martial artists of Rising Sun World to be dragged into this mess. Do you feel guilty? Although he was arrogant and unruly, he was also cunning and insidious. He wanted to affect Lin Ling's condition. Unfortunately, Lin Ling had seen all sorts of storms. His heart of martial arts was as steady as a mountain. Long Patian, do you think you can affect me? Let me tell you, coming to Rising Sun World today is the greatest mistake of your life. Lin Ling continued to summon 10,000 swords as he coldly shouted out. At this moment, he finally released an aura that was no weaker than Long Potion's. Then let's see who's the real deal. Although you have the ultimate sword Dao, your boundary is too low. I want to see just how long you can block me. Let me give you some advice. If you collide with my 80% world essence, your world essence will be rapidly consumed. Long Patian gloomily smiled. If he attacked Lin Ling, then Lin Ling should be proud of himself. Could it be that Long Patian wanted to defeat him? If so, then Lin Ling would be ranked in the top 3 amongst the third generation of the 3 academies. And as an assassin, Long Patian had naturally investigated Lin Ling. Lin Ling had just passed the academy entrance exam, and his background was too weak. He didn't have the qualifications to challenge Long Patian. Clang! The sound of metal striking metal echoed through the skies. The strength was extremely fierce. 10,000 swords danced in the air, resisting the Thunder Dragon sword. It had to be said that 10,000 swords were extremely fierce. They were like countless locusts dancing in the air. Although they were forced back again and again, it wasn't easy for Long Patian to kill Lin Ling with a single strike. How fierce, he actually blocked Long Potion's sword. This youth should be proud of himself. Many people cried out in praise. In this battle, Lin Ling would surely be defeated, but he would still be able to spread his name throughout the 3 academies. Of course, they believed that Lin Ling was only so. But was this really the truth? In truth, the current Lin Ling could erupt with an even greater strength, but he didn't. This was because Long Patian was ranked in the top 3 amongst the 3rd generation, and wasn't a weak opponent. Thus, Lin Ling wanted to see just where his limits were through this battle. After all, he had broken through boundaries too quickly, and hadn't familiarized himself with the strength of his body yet. An 8th level World King's sword, and I am only a 4th level World King's sword. The reason I was able to resist until now was because of the chaos power of the ultimate sword Dao. But, if this continues, then I will surely be defeated. Lin Ling's mind was like a clear mirror. Thus, he planned to break through Long Potion's sword. His all-encompassing demon eyes had already seen the key to breaking through Long Potion's sword. Go! Lin Ling angrily shouted, forming even more swords that shot forwards. It's useless. If this continues, then his world essence will be exhausted. Seeing this, many people shook their heads. In a battle of swords, the one with a lower boundary naturally wouldn't have the advantage. Even Long Patian disdainfully smiled. With just this strength, Lin Ling could kill Lord Guardian Demon? It seemed that he had been overthinking things. But at this time, 1,000 swords flew past the Thunder Dragon and shot towards him. Insignificant tricks, Long Patian disdainfully shouted. Light fell from the skies. This was divine light protecting his body. The advantages of an awakened divine body were displayed. Clang! As he thought, those swords were all sent flying away. But 3 swords didn't shoot towards him, but towards the bone sword in his hand. As for the Thunder Dragon Heavenquake sword, it was a 9th grade treasure. How could those 3 swords shake its majesty? Thus, Long Patian disdained to block them. The truth was indeed so. After the 3 swords collided with the Thunder Dragon Heaven-shaking sword, 2 of them directly shattered. But the final sword was stuck on the Thunder Dragon Heaven-shaking sword's joint, causing the Thunder Dragon Heaven-shaking sword to tremble. What is the meaning of this? Could it be that the youth wants to break the Thunder Dragon Heavenquake sword? Almost at the same time, many powerful True God Realm experts' expressions changed, because they saw that one of Lin Ling's 3 swords had hit the Thunder Dragon Heavenquake sword's bone. And that place seemed to be the boundary. Impossible, someone said in shock. The 2 of them were so far apart. Plus the Thunder Dragon Heavenquake sword was blocking Lin Ling. But Lin Ling could control his sword for 1,000 miles and accurately hit the Thunder Dragon Heavenquake sword. His eyesight was too terrifying. Could it be that Lin Ling wanted to rely on a broken sword to defeat a 9th grade treasure sword? Chapter 2432. Force met force. Ka. However, the massive thunder dragon in the sky seemed to have lost its source of spiritual energy. It began to dim. That terrifying strength also quietly vanished. What happened? Seeing this, many people who didn't know what was going on cried out in surprise. As for those old fellows who had already seen through everything, their hearts thundered. Lin Ling had really done it. That sword had broken through Long Potion's sword. This was too shocking. You wanted to exhaust my world essence, but you seem to have failed. At the same time, Lin Ling lightly said, taking this chance to restore his spiritual energy. As for Long Patian, his pupils constricted. A 4th stage World King Jr. had actually broken through his 8th stage World King sword. This was a miracle, but also a great humiliation, because Lin Ling seemed to be telling him that his broken sword wasn't necessarily invincible. 7 styles Thunder Edge. Without speaking further, Long Patian grasped his sword and shot towards Lin Ling. Like a thunder dragon crossing the skies, endless thunder fell down like rain, overbearing and magnificent. He had given up on long-range attacks and wanted to use close-range attacks to kill Lin Ling. He wanted to see just how Lin Ling would fight him. That youth after today's battle. I fear his name will shake the 3 great academies. But Long Patian is clearly serious. The shock in the crowd's hearts hadn't yet disappeared when they solemnly said, this was because Long Patian had clearly used a martial art. Moreover, it was an early 3rd grade martial art. His sword Dao came from Blue Dominance Academy and was much fiercer than many martial artists. With an 8th stage World King cultivation in addition to an early 3rd grade martial art, that youth would not be able to block it. Pa. Endless thunder came crashing down along with the howling winds and torrential rain. It made one suspect that just this thunder alone could cause Lin Ling's soul to scatter. Arrogant. Let me see how arrogant you are. In the howling winds and torrential rain, Long Potion's voice floated out. Crackle. But at this time, divine light shrouded the skies. It was sacred and dignified, as if the Son of God had descended. Divine light protecting the body? Long Patian actually used his innate talent against that young man? Tianxue Monarch shouted in fear. However, he soon realized that he was wrong. Long Patian had already formed a thunderous aura. This meant that he had already used his innate skill. In that case, whose divine light shield belonged to? It's him. But soon someone exclaimed. This was because they discovered that the divine light didn't come from Long Patian, but from Lin Ling. This meant that Lin Ling had also awakened his godly body. You also have an awakened divine body. I finally know why the Demon Guardian Master lost to you. However, you don't have the right to be so arrogant. Long Patian was shocked as well, but his sword became even more ferocious. It was slashing, stabbing, and flicking. Every single strike was as swift as lightning, and it was extremely powerful. Although Lin Ling had an awakened godly body, so did he. Moreover, his cultivation level was higher, and his martial arts were more powerful. Therefore, there was nothing to be afraid of. He wanted to slay Lin Ling in front of everyone. It was time for Lin Ling's show to come to an end. Beyond the Great Wall, the sounds of war. The smoke of war rises from all directions. Bones are buried in the yellow earth. Long Potion's deafening voice echoed throughout the ruins. The ruins had already turned into a pool of thunder. Sword light filled the air. It was certain that even if a 7th stage world king martial artist were here, they would still perish. And at almost the same time, Lin Ling also moved. His body seemed to leap through space, and time seemed to freeze. This was the might brought about by the flames of time and space. It changed the fluctuations of space and time. Staring at these multicolored flames, the three leaders immediately felt a sense of familiarity. Then they shouted out in unison, "That is the flames of time and space." This fellow didn't die in the 8 gods' heavenly palace, and even obtained the flames of time and space. Their complexions became dignified. From the start, they didn't have a good opinion of Lin Ling. They thought that Lin Ling was nothing more than a joke. But who knew that Lin Ling was a dark horse, and a dark one at that? Even so, he will still be defeated. His boundary is too low. Sky Snow King's heart was filled with jealousy. At this time he sinisterly smiled. He didn't believe that Lin Ling was Long Potion's match. After all, he had personally experienced just how strong Long Potion was. "I want to see just how you'll dodge." However, the more Long Potion fought, the more startled he became. How could this Lin Ling be so mysterious? He was actually able to dodge his thunder. Could Lin Ling's speed be even faster than the thunder? In truth, Lin Ling's speed wasn't too fast. It was just that the flames of time and space had changed space and time, causing the thunder to be unable to catch up to Lin Ling. Although they had awakened their divine bodies, Lin Ling's potential was clearly greater. And most importantly, the space and time divine tablet was in Lin Ling's possession, allowing him to display the limits of the flames of time and space. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Lin Ling dodged all of the swords. He's about to hit. There were even times when a sword was right in front of Lin Ling's eyes. Everyone thought that Lin Ling was dead for sure. But Lin Ling's feet moved, and he dodged the sword like a reflection in water. The entire process was dangerous, but he seemed extremely calm. From the perspective of the crowd, Lin Ling's figure could be said to be pleasing to the eye, as smooth as flowing water. Fierce, a 4th level world king can fight until now. This youth is going to amaze the world. Who is he? How come I've never heard of his name before? Gradually, many people began to pay more attention to Lin Ling. As for Long Potion, the more he fought, the angrier he became. His tyrannical sword slashed out again and again. But unfortunately, he still couldn't touch Lin Ling. This fellow's boundary isn't high, so why is his comprehension of martial arts so deep? Moreover, he has been dodging my sword all this time. His world essence should have been consumed by now. Long Potion had far too many doubts in his heart. He was sure that compared to Heavenly Snow King, Lin Ling was far more difficult to deal with. Of course, the most difficult thing to deal with was Lin Ling's aura, which was as mysterious as the clouds in the sky. "I've finally caught you." And at this time, Long Potion suddenly grasped an opportunity. The sword in his hand stabbed out like a storm. The skies were filled with his sword, accompanied by surging thunder. One could imagine that if Lin Ling were to be pierced, his body would be riddled with holes. He's lost. At some unknown time, the martial artists in the ruins began to clench their fists. The intensity of this battle had already surpassed their imaginations. That's not necessarily true, but at this time, Lin Ling finally struck out with his sword. The 6th level of the Profound Sword record, Profound Word Sword, was rapidly slashed out by him. In the skies, the dazzling Profound character appeared. Profound Sword record, and it's the final level. Its rank has reached the early 3rd grade. This fellow has actually cultivated this martial art to the peak. Some of the old monsters who cultivated the sword were once again surprised. They realized that Lin Ling was becoming more and more unfathomable. As for the Profound Sword record, they had also cultivated it before. However, the further they went, the harder it was to cultivate. Many times, when they cultivated to the 5th level, they would give up and switch to other martial arts sword moves. And now, The mysterious young man in their eyes had succeeded in cultivating it. He gave off a feeling that his entire body was a mystery. What's the use? Your sword can meet mine head-on. You're no match for me. Chapter 2433. Thunder Dragons remains. Everyone seemed to realize this. Many people couldn't help but sigh. This time, Lin Ling was about to be defeated. They clenched their fists even tighter. They hoped that Lin Ling would be defeated. But they also hoped that Lin Ling would create another miracle. Perhaps the fact that Lin Ling hadn't been defeated yet caused them to increasingly hope for a miracle to occur. After all, if Long Patian were to be defeated by Lin Ling, then that would be fun. However, a miracle had indeed occurred. Everyone thought that Lin Ling wouldn't be able to block Long Potion's sword. But in reality, that sword had been blocked. The dazzling, profound character carried with it a sharp sword light. It had actually completely blocked the storm-like sword of thunder. Your world essence. Long Patian finally cried out in alarm. This was the first time he had cried out in alarm. This was because Lin Ling's sword allowed him to feel a massive amount of world essence. This was absolutely the strength of a 7th stage world king. But Lin Ling was truly at the 4th level of the world king realm. And at this time, Lin Ling had fused the strength of his 2 dantians together, forming that sharp sword. His eyes were extremely calm. His left eye quietly stared forwards, the myriad mammoth demon eyes watching that sword. Faintly, he seemed to sense something. Tao. This was the Tao. It had to be known that the ultimate sword Tao was divided into several boundaries. The first was the fundamental boundary. This was the foundation of all sword martial arts in the infinite worlds. Even the sword Tao that Lin Ling cultivated in the rainforest Holy Land belonged to the fundamental boundary. The second was the subtle boundary. This was the perfect sword Tao, the gap between perfection and subtle. It was born from the chaos of the universe. Only martial artists that had been to the chaos of the universe could touch upon this gate. The third was the true boundary of Tao. This represented one's skill approaching the Tao, the upper body of chaos. After reaching the true boundary of Tao, the power of chaos brought about by the sword Tao would be even greater, spreading everywhere. Break for me! Lin Ling roared out loud. His long hair wildly danced in the wind. The broken sword in his hand emitted popping sounds, finally turning into an invisible strength that poured into the profound character. The word Xian became even more dazzling. Long Potion's pupils constricted as he sensed Lin Ling's terrifying aura. Lin Ling was becoming more and more powerful. He immediately activated an even more powerful sword move to resist Lin Ling's sword. Hot Sand Gold Mirage, Wilderness Thunder Desert Storm. The sky was filled with sword shadows, and the ruins were shattered. Only the statue was still sitting on the ground, and the surroundings had already turned into ruins. Puff! Puff! The weaker martial artists were directly strangled to death by the air waves. Even a 5th stage world king powerhouse was no exception. The collision of the 2 swords was terrifying. Boom! And when the 2 swords collided, even more turbulent world essence energy erupted, mixed with the crazy primal chaos energy. Boom! Boom! At this moment, the rising sun realm was actually split into 2. The sky and the earth were severed by a single sword strike. Many experts who were floating in the void of the universe had a drastic change in expression. They had never imagined that the clash between the 2 juniors would actually sever a world. One had to know that the rising sun world was an extremely stable world, not a tiny one. Puff! At almost the same time, a blood-red light shot out. Then a figure was sent flying backwards. During this process, a massive amount of broken bones also shot out. This was Long Patian. Beneath Lin Ling's true realm of Tao sword, he hadn't been able to block it. How terrifying! Looking at Long Patian being sent flying backwards, even Sunset Brilliance and the others paled. The result of this battle had surpassed all of their imaginations. With this, they could determine that Lin Ling's strength was ranked in the top 3 of the 3rd generation. The last time I saw him he wasn't this strong. How much time has passed, and yet his strength has risen to such a terrifying degree. I fear that in less than 100 years his strength will catch up to us. The blue-clothed old man solemnly said. In the chaos of the universe, there were geniuses of all worlds and geniuses of the martial god realm. But Lin Ling was absolutely a monstrous martial god that stood above all martial god geniuses. How can you be so strong? At this time, Long Patian spat out another mouthful of blood. He glared at Lin Ling. As for Lin Ling, he was also panting for breath. He looked at Long Patian, a 7th stage world king in addition to an awakened divine body. His life force was truly tremendous. In his opinion, that sword strike from before should have been able to obliterate Long Patian. But his estimation was wrong. This meant that Li Xiaoyao's vision wasn't necessarily accurate. This was because Li Xiaoyao was using the vision of his era to see things. But the current era was no longer the same as before. The geniuses of this era were far more powerful. It's not over yet, Lin Ling lightly said. However, the Tyrant Song's sword in his hand had already shattered, leaving only the hilt behind. Seeing this, Long Patian frowned. Your sword is completely gone, so how can you fight? The martial arts you used before consumed a great deal of your world essence. You wanted to borrow a great deal of strength to kill me, but you miscalculated. Your world essence has also been consumed, so how can you fight? Lin Ling immediately sneered. You really have sharp eyes. Not bad, not bad. Lin Ling, oh Lin Ling, I am very curious about you. How did you rise up so quickly that even I have to take you seriously? Exclamation point. Hearing this, Long Patian took a deep breath and nodded. It was like he was seeing Lin Ling for the first time. As he looked at Lin Ling, his eyes became increasingly dignified. After all, in order for him to possess his current strength, he had already battled countless geniuses. He thought that he was invincible, but today, a dark horse had risen up and caused him to suffer a great loss. What third-generation Heavenly Snow King? Compared to Lin Ling, they were nothing but farts. Next, I'm going to use my strongest move. Either you die or I die. Exclamation point. Long Patian knew that if he didn't erupt with his trump card, there was no way he could defeat Lin Ling. Bone Dragon Thunder Body. Exclamation point. Ka ka ka. Tens of millions of arcs of thunder were born from the chaos of the universe, appearing out of nowhere. It was like an ancient thunder dragon had arrived. In the universe, a giant thunder dragon appeared, forming an endless rainbow of thunder. Bang! Long Potion's body exploded, turning into countless broken bones. But soon they reformed, turning into a giant thunder dragon that caused the surrounding area to be filled with thunder. And this thunder dragon's entire body was made of bones. No flesh or blood could be seen. But in its chest, a beating heart could be seen. Thump, thump, thump. At the same time, a deafening sound echoed out. In the chaos of the universe, waves of energy exploded outwards. In the distance, those ancient 7th-level World King Realm martial artists paled, their hearts beating wildly. Puff! Someone spat out a mouthful of blood and frantically drew back, avoiding these sounds. Some people directly exploded. The corpse of a thunder dragon. He actually refined these corpses. No wonder he wanted to obtain the Saint Body Demon Heart. Only those true Divinity Realm powerhouses had dignified expressions. This was because this was the sound of a thunder dragon's heartbeat. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to block it. The thunder dragon roared. It swam through the universe, hurtling towards Lin Ling. In an instant, a massive aura came crashing down, causing Lin Ling's complexion to pale. He could feel his heart beating wildly, as if someone had taken a sledgehammer and pounded it. If it weren't for his godly demon body being formidable, he would have vomited blood and been injured. Rumble, rumble, rumble. At the same time, thunder struck. Chapter 2434. Sequelae. This was because Lin Ling had used 2 dantians and was able to fight a 7th stage world king. Moreover, he had divine light protecting his body, greatly increasing his defenses. What was difficult was the sound of his heartbeat. After the thunder struck, Lin Ling was sent flying backwards. Run! I want to see just how you'll run. However, the massive thunder dragon skeleton surrounded Lin Ling for 1,000 miles, trapping him in the center. It wanted to shake Lin Ling to death. He lost. This time that youth lost. No one thought that Lin Ling could win. However, for Lin Ling to fight until now, even though he had lost, it was still an honorable defeat. After all, many people realized that once the thunder dragon appeared, Even an 8th-stage world king martial artist wasn't its match. You said you wanted to avenge your friend? Haha, you came here to die. After you go to hell, help me teach your friend a lesson. I'm sorry, but I'll kill him. Haha. The entire universe of chaos was filled with Long Potion's arrogant voice. You want to apologize? Then you should personally go to hell and apologize on her behalf. However, after his voice was an angry voice that caused Long Potion's heart to tighten. Lin Ling hadn't died yet? Bang! At the same time, multicolored flames shot into the skies. Evil flames burned the universe. These multicolored flames turned into a giant, like an evil flame god. Following this, a massive power of world essence also erupted. Everyone could feel that this was the strength of an 8th-stage world king. Then the massive thunder dragon was forcefully broken apart. A flaming figure shot out from the center, breaking free. It floated in the universe of chaos, like an ancient flame god. Is this fellow invincible? What a freak! At this moment, no one wasn't moved. This was because Lin Ling was still hiding cards in his hands. Was he limitless? Moreover, Lin Ling was only at the 4th-stage world king realm, but he had risen 4 great boundaries in succession. Even in martial god world, this was an unprecedented feat. The collision of 2 young kings, there is always a taller mountain. This has nothing to do with the face of us old fellows. Sunset Brilliant Sun bitterly smiled and shook his head. In the past, he was also a disciple of the 3 great academies, but now he discovered that each new generation surpassed the previous. You will still die. Long Potion's crazed voice, shaking the universe of chaos. Lin Ling still had cards in his hands. He was unwilling to accept this. He had to kill Lin Ling. Rumble rumble. The giant thunder dragon was like a heavenly river, hurtling towards Lin Ling once more. However, the current Lin Ling had borrowed the power of the evil flame transformation to reach the 8th level of the World King realm. He could be called an overlord, the master of 10 great worlds. How could he be defeated so easily? He turned into a shooting star and weaved through the chaos in the universe to avoid the pursuit of the lightning dragon. With the space-time flames protecting his body and the increase in his cultivation level, the threat that the heartbeat posed to him was becoming smaller and smaller. Lin Ling, come and fight. Long Patian became increasingly angry. He couldn't catch up to Lin Ling, and he couldn't even affect Lin Ling. A flame god and a thunder dragon swept through the universe of chaos. Wherever they went, the weak died. They were like 2 meteors constantly flashing, shocking everyone. Do you only know how to run? Come and fight me. I killed your friend, and he died a miserable death. Don't you want revenge? I am one of the 18 assassins. I am right here, come and fight me. Long Potion's voice became increasingly crazed. After fighting for so long, he was becoming impatient. As for Lin Ling, he didn't say a word. He continued to flash like a meteor. He didn't care because he was just a nameless last-generation disciple. But Long Patian was one of the top 3 of the 3rd-generation disciples. If Long Patian couldn't defeat him, how could he not be anxious? After an unknown period of time, Lin Ling finally came to a stop. This was because his evil flame transformation had reached its end. He was beginning to weaken. You used a secret technique to forcefully increase your cultivation. Now the aftereffects have appeared. You are getting weaker and weaker. Let's see how you can resist me. Seeing that Lin Ling had stopped, the thunder dragon immediately raised its head and looked down at Lin Ling. Aren't you the same? Compared to my secret technique, your aftereffects are worse. Lin Ling also raised his head and said indifferently. Long Potion's expression changed drastically. For a moment, he didn't know what to say. In fact, I don't need to say it. You know it yourself. You used the remains of the thunder dragon, but you haven't succeeded in controlling it. The longer you use it, the greater the aftereffects. You might even die. Lin Ling said again. So, you want to obtain the sacred body demon heart to strengthen your talent, and let the remains of the thunder dragon be able to control it for a longer period of time. Nonsense! Long Patian shouted angrily. Hearing their conversation, the crowd was in an uproar. Was Long Patian going to lose? This was simply unbelievable. In fact, you have no way out. Previously, if you forcefully took back the remains of the thunder dragon, you wouldn't have died. But you knew that you would be killed by me. So, you had to continue using the Thunder Dragon until you killed me. Unfortunately, I wasn't killed by you. So, you wanted to anger me and force me to fight you to the death. Unfortunately, you didn't succeed. Lin Ling's face was pale. The aftereffects of the evil flame transformation made him extremely weak. Chapter 2435. An existence in high demand. No one thought that Long Patian would end up like this. And who was Long Patian? He was one of the top 3 genius powerhouses of the 3 Great Academies' 3rd generation. He was also an assassin of the Flying Dragon Organization and the president of the World Trade Union. When he stepped forward to compete for the Saint Body Demon Heart, no one was his match, and he became the most dazzling heroic elite. However, a strange youth had come and challenged Long Patian. At that time, everyone thought this was nothing more than a joke. This was because if a passerby could counterattack 3 generations, then the 3rd generation wouldn't be worth much at all. However, reality proved that a passerby could counterattack. This result had undoubtedly far surpassed everyone's expectations. Who is he? Heaven's Now King paled. He finally understood why Lin Ling had disdained him. This was because he truly couldn't enter Lin Ling's eyes. In truth, many old fellows were curious. Just who was this dark horse youth? Only the 3 great leaders knew a little about Lin Ling. Even so, the shock in their hearts wasn't small. This was because in the 8 gods' heavenly palace, it was rumored that Lin Ling had died. But now he had revived after death, and even possessed the flames of time and space. Moreover, he had borrowed a 4th-level World King realm cultivation to kill 3 generations of 7th-level World Kings. The number of miracles that had occurred could be said to be innumerable. Unfortunately, Lin Ling didn't know that he had become famous through this battle. He was so weak that he couldn't even open his eyes. Thus, he only wanted to leave this place. Little friend, it's only a competition for a Saint Body Demon Heart. Why kill someone? Some people were shocked, but there were also some that harbored ill intentions. For a monstrous genius like Lin Ling, if they couldn't use him, then it would be better to kill him. The one who spoke was an old man in brown robes. He had a faint smile on his face, but this smile was a bit fierce. This old man was clearly Long Potion Sr. behind the curtain. He naturally stepped forward at this time. Then what do you want? Lin Ling calmly asked as he turned his head. To kill someone in a spar, aren't you a bit too arrogant? So stay behind. The old man still smiled, but his smile was even more ferocious. Murder? Old ghost, you must be joking. He, Long Patian, is an assassin of the Flying Dragon Organization, and he already wants to kill me. So please understand, he wants to kill me, and I don't want to kill him first. Lin Ling laughed, and his smile was also somewhat crazy. I don't care. Stay here. How could the old man not know that Long Patian was in the wrong? But how could he let Lin Ling go? With a wave of his long robe, power gushed out, as if there was a world within his sleeves. At this moment, the chaos in the universe seemed to have been sucked into his sleeves. However, as soon as this suction force was born, the power of the myriad worlds attacked and directly cut off the suction force. Who is it? The old man frowned. Did someone stop him? He looked ahead coldly. Step out if you don't want to die. His strength was at the true god realm, so he wanted to see who was so daring. Old man Shinpa, you are already so old. Don't you feel ashamed to attack a junior? In the chaos in the universe, a sarcastic voice rang out, causing the old man's face to become even more ferocious. Sneaking around, you don't seem to be a good person. Since you don't want to come out, I will personally find you. At that time, you will know what it means to live a life worse than death. Live a life worse than death. I want to see how it feels. However, as soon as his voice fell, a figure walked out. The setting sun was tens of thousands of feet high, and the dark chaos in the universe was also illuminated. Fu Xing Manor's people, Sunset Glory. The old man's pupils trembled, and his face became a little ugly. Although he and Sunset Glory were both at the true god realm, he was obviously not the latter's opponent. The latter was a little famous in the 9 prefectures, and he was only in the Qing prefecture. What? You don't want to let me taste the feeling of living a life worse than death? Sunset Glory smiled and walked forward slowly, his long robe fluttering, like an emperor of a generation. Haha, just kidding. The old man immediately smiled and said, secretly angry at Lin Ling's luck. He actually made such an expert come out. Living a life worse than death is a joke? I think that your words are more like a joke. Sunset Glory was still smiling, but there was a menacing threat in his smile. Pa pa pa. The old man immediately slapped his own mouth. Look at my mouth, it's so cheap. Sir Sunset Glory, please don't take it seriously. In front of countless people he slapped his own face. From this, it could be seen just how much he dreaded Sunset Glory. This boy is very mysterious. In the future, he will surely become a great talent. I think that such a talent should belong to the heavenly court. However, just because the old man dreaded Sunset Glory, that didn't mean that others did. Soon, a dignified voice floated out. This was one of the 3 great leaders of the 8 gods' heavenly palace, Battle's sovereign Ling Ying. He seemed to be very interested in Lin Ling. Of course, besides him, there were many other old fellows that were interested in Lin Ling. After all, a 4th-level world king could jump ranks to fight and defeat a 7th-level world king. This sort of increase in strength was far too terrifying. Thus, they all wished that they could find out all the secrets on Lin Ling's body. The heavenly court is indeed good. But has anyone else agreed to go to the heavenly court? Sunset Glory smiled. You don't need to worry about that. Get out of my way, Sunset Glory. Battle's sovereign Ling Ying coldly spat out these words. His fighting spirit began to boil like a volcano. My apologies, but I will interfere in this matter no matter what. Sunset Glory wasn't some soft persimmon. He erupted with a boundless aura. The two of them glanced at each other, and then began to collide in the chaos of the universe. This terrifying strength nearly overturned the chaos of the universe. The weaker martial artists were directly smashed to pieces by the shockwaves. As for the martial artists that were still alive, they immediately retreated, their hearts shaking. They never thought that for the sake of this youth, these old fellows would finally take action. Of course, this youth was far too mysterious. If they had the strength to do so, they likely would have grabbed him and interrogated him about his secrets. At this moment, Lin Ling was about to fall asleep. However, he still saw what was happening in front of him. Especially when the green-robed old man smiled at him. It warmed his heart. It seemed that he owed Sunset Glory a favor. Capture him. As the battle continued, more and more powerful martial artists joined the battle. The scene was extremely shocking. Hee hee, you guys fight. This Saint Body's demon heart is mine. Among the crowd, Queen Qianji took advantage of the chaos. After breaking the floating stone statue and obtaining the treasure, she smiled seductively and wanted to leave. However, when she saw the weak Lin Ling, her eyes immediately revealed a greedy look. She waved her hand, and a sky full of spider webs rushed toward Lin Ling. Oh no, he fell into the Spider Queen's hands. Seeing this, Lin Ling smiled bitterly. Unfortunately, not to mention that he was weak right now, even if he was in his peak condition, he wouldn't be a match for that demoness. Therefore, Lin Ling was tightly wrapped in the spider webs and was dragged away by Queen Qianji. Queen Qianji, how dare you? Seeing that Queen Qianji had succeeded, many people cursed. They were obviously too slow. Chapter 2436. Hijacked. Queen of Qianji. On the other hand, Luo Ri's Great was still fighting Battle Emperor Ling Ying. He turned around and pondered for a moment. In the end, he did not do anything. He had a feeling that Queen Qianji would not harm Lin Ling. Rumble. After the disappearance of the Thousand Fate Queen, the war and chaos became even more intense. Many old monsters took this opportunity to clear their old grudges. Who is that young man? The crowd watched the battle from afar. Then, they looked in the direction where Queen Qianji left. They were extremely confused. Until now, they still didn't know who that young man was. They only knew that the Qing state was in chaos because of that young man. At this moment, Lin Ling was wrapped in the spider web, and he was also unconscious. He had single-handedly wiped out all the assassins. In fact, if it weren't for his arrogance, he would have fallen long ago. But in the end, he persevered and finally avenged Sun Yener. The knot in his heart had also been resolved. After an unknown period of time, a warm fragrance drifted into his nose, causing Lin Ling to slowly open his eyes. Then he discovered that he was in a cave. The cave was tidy with a bed and a table. It seemed to be a woman's room. After that, Lin Ling hurriedly checked his body and found that everything had returned to normal. Moreover, his cultivation had increased slightly. Now that he had recovered his strength, this place was not suitable for him to stay for long. Therefore, Lin Ling wanted to leave. However, he was shocked to find that the cave was wrapped in layers of spider webs. With his strength, he could not break through them at all. It's Queen Qianji. Lin Ling smiled bitterly. Li Xiaoyao had actually met this spider queen before. She was also a female genius, but she lost to Li Xiaoyao in the past. Furthermore, it was a humiliating defeat. Li Xiaoyao gave her 3 moves, and Qianji Queen still couldn't defeat her opponent. In the end, Queen Qianji swore that she would defeat Li Xiaoyao in this lifetime. All in all, she was a woman with a strong temperament. What a headache. Thinking of this, Lin Ling shook his head helplessly. You're awake. But at this moment, an old voice suddenly sounded. A huge spider crawled over from the cave wall. This spider looked quite old. Its 8 legs were covered in fur, giving it a ferocious feeling. I'm here to guard you under the queen's orders. You'd better be obedient. If the queen is in a good mood, she might let you go. The old spider stopped in front of Lin Ling and stared at Lin Ling. Got it. Lin Ling immediately knew that this was a small demon. He lazily replied and took out some wine to drink. Since he was already here, he might as well make the best of it. After all, the spider queen wouldn't eat him. Yo, wine, it smells so good. Kid, give me a sip. The old spider crawled over, drooling as it crawled. It was obviously a spider drunkard. Lin Ling was speechless, but he still threw the wine to it. Then, the old spider hugged the wine with its 8 legs and kept licking the mouth of the wine while sighing. After a few sips, the old spider became more talkative. It was sighing about life, and it seemed to have become close to Lin Ling's sigh. Guarding prisoners is the most boring job. Being able to be with those girls is the life of a spider. The old spider looked out of the window and said, he didn't expect it to be an old pervert. When I was young, I was just as handsome as you. At that time, the beauties in the tribe loved me the most. My hole was trampled by those spider beauties, but I was aloof and refused them. Oh, I'm so proud that I refused them, the old spider thought. Hearing this, Lin Ling seriously doubted how handsome the old spider was when he was young. Now that I'm old, the spiders in my tribe don't like me anymore. Sigh, I missed the best time back then. Look outside the window, there is a beauty. TSK, 8 long legs and full of hair. Her mouth is like a chrysanthemum, sexy and charming. If there is a strand of hair on the spider's head, she will be a devastatingly beautiful woman. The old spider stared out of the window, fantasizing. Lin Ling also stared out of the window. He suddenly saw a spider crawling in the distance. It was as ugly as it could be. Could it be the beauty that the old spider talked about? Look at those sexy legs, they are so seductive. The old spider drank and drooled, and even threw a coquettish glance. Outside the window, the female spider crawled away. She seemed to have noticed the old spider's gaze, and immediately crawled away shyly, leaving behind a sentence. Old pervert. Old pervert. Lin Ling. Old pervert. He didn't understand why the female spider was so sexy and devastatingly beautiful. Get out. At this moment a cold voice was heard. The old spider hugged the bottle of wine and crawled away quickly. After that, a slender and charming figure walked in. She was wearing an almost transparent gauze dress. Her slender legs and fair abdomen were clearly visible. She was looking at Lin Ling with a cold smile on her face. Who else could it be other than the Queen of Qianji? Lin Ling blinked. Since he couldn't run away for the time being, he simply stared at the beautiful body without any scruples. To be honest, compared to the spider outside the window, Lin Ling felt that the Queen of Qianji was the real devastatingly beautiful woman. Have you seen enough? The Queen of Qianji stared at Lin Ling and sneered. Almost. Lin Ling took out another bottle of wine and drank lazily. The Queen of Qianji sneered even more when she saw how stubborn Lin Ling was. She looked at Lin Ling from head to toe, as if she was trying to see through him. Last time, she almost caught Lin Ling. but the powerful fighters from the martial gods battalion interfered. But this time, this guy finally fell into her hands. She said calmly, "Let me ask you something, are you Li Xiaoyao?" Yes. Lin Ling also knew that he had fallen into the hands of the Queen of Qianji. He couldn't resist at all. At this moment, he finally realized that he was still too weak. However, since he couldn't resist, Lin Ling decided to act shamelessly. He said lazily, "Who is Li Xiaoyao? Your husband?" "Yes." "Haha, you're quite stubborn. Do you have to force me to do it?" The Queen of Qianji sat down in the cave. Her movements were full of feminine charm. She stared at Lin Ling with her enchanting eyes. She didn't expect this guy to be so arrogant after being caught by her. "That's right. I am Li Xiaoyao." Lin Ling smiled and admitted it. The Queen of Qianji was stunned. She couldn't believe it. In fact, she wasn't sure if Lin Ling was Lin Ling. She was just suspecting. Although Lin Ling was mysterious, there were many geniuses with mysterious abilities in the universe. Now that Lin Ling admitted it, she started to doubt it. Li Xiaoyao, the former #1 martial god in the martial gods realm. Although I don't know where that guy went, I am sure that I am him. Lin Ling said again when he saw the Queen of Qianji's shocked expression. Sometimes the truth could confuse people. "You are Li Xiaoyao." The Queen of Qianji felt dizzy. Is this guy really Li Xiaoyao? Chapter 2437. Refining the devil heart of the sacred body. Hihi, are you playing with your sister? Queen Qianji narrowed her eyes. Do you think I have the leisure? I already told you, I'm Li Xiaoyao. Do you like him? Now, you can leave Li Xiaoyao's love to me. Lin Ling said carelessly. Pa, how can you be considered Li Xiaoyao with your shameless appearance? That guy's arrogance soars to the clouds. He's definitely not as bad as you. Queen Qianji snorted. I'm also arrogant. It's just that you haven't discovered my inner qualities yet. Lin Ling stood up and pretended to walk towards Queen Qianji. His face was full of vicissitudes of life. Those who did not know him would think that he was a man with a story. Seeing Lin Ling walking towards her, Queen Qianji was stunned once again. For a moment, she almost believed that this young man was Li Xiaoyao, because everything about him was so similar. However, for some things, the closer they were to the truth, the more likely they were to be false. Sometimes the answer is still hidden in the clouds. This kid might not be Li Xiaoyao. You dare to play with me? You've got guts. I know you've obtained Li Xiaoyao's 10,000 mammoth demonic eyes. I like that mysterious talent very much. Now give me your left eye. However, just when Lin Ling thought that he could intimidate Queen Qianji, she stood up and said coldly. Hearing this, Lin Ling had no doubt that this demoness would dig out his left eye. This demoness was merciless and bloodthirsty. There was nothing she wouldn't dare to do. Queen Qianji, is Lin Ling here? However, at this moment a majestic voice was heard. A huge pressure covered the entire cave. Queen Qianji's expression changed. She cursed. What a sharp nose. These old bastards. She naturally sensed who it was, but there was nothing she could do about it. She could only say that Lin Ling's luck was too good. The cobwebs around the cave seemed to have been forcibly torn apart by someone. Then two figures strode in. The two of them, one at the front and one at the back, had extraordinary auras. They were Luo Riyao and the green-robed elder. Previously, they saw Queen Qianji abducting Lin Ling, so they used a secret technique to leave a mark on Lin Ling. That was how they managed to chase after him. Most importantly, they were busy at that time. So in a way, Queen Qianji was helping them. Queen Qianji, thank you. After setting sun's brilliance entered the cave, and saw that Lin Ling was safe and sound, he couldn't help but smile. No matter what, we are from the 8 gods' heavenly palace. If we can help, of course we will. Queen Qianji said grumpily. She was clearly in a bad mood. Hearing this, the old man ignored him and looked at Lin Ling. He wanted to ask Lin Ling if there was anything he needed. Looking at the two seniors, Lin Ling felt warm in his heart. He smiled and said, Seniors, you came just in time. Otherwise, my virginity would have been taken by this demoness. This demoness is really lustful. She has been secretly in love with me for a long time. Bah! Queen Qianji couldn't help but curse. She didn't expect this guy to be so shameless. Luo Riyao was a little worried at first. However, when he thought that Queen Qianji wasn't a lustful woman, he couldn't help but laugh. Then he said, Queen Qianji, that sacred body demon heart should be yours. You helped Lin Ling get such a precious treasure. Aren't you satisfied? That's more like it. Queen Qianji nodded coldly. Sacred body demon heart? Lin Ling's eyes lit up. He had heard of this treasure before. It was an extremely rare treasure. He didn't expect Queen Qianji to be greedy for it. However, there were too many powerful enemies. If Queen Qianji didn't save him, he might have been taken away by the heavenly court. Therefore, compared to the heavenly court, Lin Ling wanted to be taken away by Queen Qianji more. That sacred body demon heart would be the reward for saving Lin Ling. Don't tell me you want to use the sacred body demon heart to improve your Spider King bloodline. Lin Ling suddenly said. Queen Qianji looked at Lin Ling in surprise. She was surprised that Lin Ling knew her secret. However, she still nodded. It was obvious that her bloodline was extraordinary. Once a powerful martial artist's strength reached the level of being able to penetrate the heavens and penetrate the earth, the blood flowing in their body, as well as their flesh and blood, would carry the aura of the universe. Their descendants would be able to inherit their bloodline, and would naturally be stronger than ordinary martial artists. Their innate talents would also be more powerful. That was the advantage of ancient warriors. That advantage could be passed down from generation to generation. That was also why the warriors in the martial god realm were so powerful. It was said that some people awakened their godly body the moment they were born, which shocked the entire martial god realm. Of course, there were very few geniuses who were born with a silver spoon in their mouths. Queen Qianji's ancestor was obviously quite powerful. However, after passing down the bloodline, the power of her bloodline became weaker and weaker. Therefore, she needed to use certain treasures to activate her bloodline. Sacred body demon heart was one of the treasures. You have already awakened your godly body. You can use the sacred body demon heart to become a real godly body. Lin Ling said again. Nonsense. It's just a sacred body demon heart. How can I become a godly body in such a short time? Queen Qianji frowned. However, her voice was filled with excitement. What if I can achieve it for you? Lin Ling suddenly laughed. Queen Qianji stood up and pounced on Lin Ling. She grabbed Lin Ling's shoulders with her slender arms and said, Are you kidding me? She seemed to be even more excited. Lin Ling smelled an indescribable fragrance. He smiled and said, Senior Luo Riyao, I told you that she is a pervert. Do you see it now? Don't change the topic. Can you really help me become a godly body? Queen Qianji scolded angrily. Her thin clothes could not hide her seductive body at all. Lin Ling licked his lips. However, he shook his head and said, Do you think I have time to joke with you? I can help you refine the sacred body demon heart into a real demon heart pill. You are lucky that I have the space-time fire. Otherwise, you would have been anxious in the past. All right. Help me improve my talent now. Queen Qianji quickly took out the sacred body demon heart. She was not afraid that Lin Ling would run away with the treasure. After all, Lin Ling could not run away. As for Luo Riyao and the old man in green, they looked at Lin Ling in surprise. If it were anyone else, they would have slapped them. How could a sacred body demon heart be refined so easily? However, they had witnessed Lin Ling's miraculous abilities in the Eight Gods' heavenly palace. Therefore, they were looking forward to this moment. This alone is not enough. You need to find Scarlet Wind New Silk Stone, Big Dipper Dream Hair Flower, and Universe Black Copper. Lin Ling touched his chin and listed a lot of materials. These materials were very precious. Many of them could only be found in Universe Black Copper. Slow down. I will remember it. Okay. Queen Qianji was suspicious of Lin Ling at first. However, when she saw Lin Ling's reaction, she became more hopeful. I have Big Dipper Dream Hair Flower. Okay. Fortunately, I have Sulfur Illusion. Okay. Chapter 2438. Never heard of. If you're still lacking materials, then go out and search for them. Little ones, go to the myriad worlds to search for these materials. If you can't find them, then snatch them back for me. Looking at the missing materials, Queen Qianji waved her hand domineeringly. Outside the cave, the spiders obeyed and flew into the sky. Only now did Lin Ling realize that he was in a world. And this world was not big. It floated in the chaos of the universe. And as far as the eye could see, it was like a starry sky. This made Lin Ling feel as if he was on a small island. While waiting, Qianji, Sunset Glory, and the others became more and more interested in Lin Ling. They kept asking Lin Ling questions. If it were other people, Lin Ling would naturally not bother to talk nonsense. However, these people had helped him before, so he patiently explained. Queen Qianji and the others learned a lot from this explanation. They were even more suspicious of Lin Ling now. That's because I received the inheritance of the Boundary King of Heaven and Earth ring, so I'm a little familiar with this. Lin Ling knew that they would be very confused, so he found an excuse. The World Barrier King of Heaven and Earth ring? Is that the World Barrier Master who rose to prominence like a comet 10,000 years ago? He's an orange-robed Barrier Master. The three of them were not world spiritists, so at this moment, they were very shocked. Moreover, they finally knew why Lin Ling was so mysterious. In fact, Li Xiaoyao was even more powerful than the Boundary King of Heaven, an Earth universal boundary. He had long surpassed the orange robe level. Not long after, those spiders flew back and brought back some materials. Alright Lin Ling, all the materials are here. Let's see if you can open our eyes. Queen Qianji laughed excitedly. Lin Ling looked at her strangely. What happened? Queen Qianji frowned. You look pretty when you smile. So as a woman, it's better not to be so domineering. Lin Ling shrugged. Queen Qianji was stunned, and she gritted her teeth. She was too anxious to refine the pills, so she lost her composure for a moment. Lin Ling, refining the demon heart of Saint Body requires so many materials. The old man in a green robe looked at the materials on the ground. No need. 2/3 of the materials are for me to refine the dominating song sword. 1/3 are for the demon heart pill. Lin Ling, demon heart of heaven and earth universal. And demon heart of heaven and earth, demon body. The old man in green robe. Studio Lin Ling Sunset Glory. And the green robe, Sunset Glory and Sunset Glory Sunset Glory. Studio, Sunset Glory, and Sunset Glory. Demon and Sunset Continent Studio World Dragon Sun Studio. Qianji Queen smiled bitterly. Lin Ling, I know your sword is broken. But what sword do you want? I'll get it back for you. Be patient and make the demon heart pill for me. What a joke! Lin Ling's sword was comparable to the sacred body demon heart. If there was a mistake in the refining process, then the sacred body demon heart would be wasted. Are you saying that you don't want to see me refine the sacred body devil heart pill? Hearing this, Lin Ling's expression turned ugly. You can refine it however you want, as long as it succeeds. Queen Qianji raised both of her hands in surrender. Since she had a favor to ask, she could only swallow her anger. Luo Riyao clicked his tongue in wonder. One is refining weapons, the other is refining divine pills. Refining them at the same time. This is simply unheard of. Senior Sunset Glory, not only have you heard of it, but you've also seen it with your own eyes. Lin Ling's expression didn't change. He waved his hands, and the materials all floated up. Lin Ling's hands didn't stop. He used the fire of time and space to draw a mysterious barrier. This barrier used the universe as a furnace to burn the materials. At this moment, a huge amount of spiritual energy rushed towards them, causing their pupils to tremble. This kind of technique was something they had never seen before. Boom! With the influx of spiritual energy from the universe, the fire of time and space became even bigger, causing the entire cave to be filled with colorful lights. This type of barrier was called the Peerless Wide Cloth Barrier. It could increase the power of the flames by a few hundred times, allowing it to burn the materials that were difficult to melt. If this barrier didn't take a long time to set up, and required a lot of concentration, Lin Ling would be able to defeat many ancient martial artists with this barrier. Pop, pop, pop. Almost at the same time, the materials in the barrier started to melt. They've all melted. Even the sacred body devil heart pill is disappearing. How can we tell the difference between the materials? The old man in the green shirt exclaimed. In fact, even Luo Riyao couldn't remain calm. This was the first time he had seen such a method of refining materials. After all, there were hundreds of materials. If they all melted at the same time, how could they tell the difference between the materials? Lin Ling, don't destroy my sacred body devil heart pill. Queen Qianji was more anxious than the other two. She shrieked. Don't worry. It's such a simple refining. I know what I'm doing, Lin Ling said without looking at her. Know what he's doing? However, Queen Qianji didn't know what he was doing. If all the materials were put together, it would only be a piece of scrap metal. At this moment she regretted it. She shouldn't have trusted Lin Ling. Lin Ling was just messing around. Previously, she had been too anxious to restore her ancestors' bloodline. Even Luo Riyao and the others thought that Lin Ling was messing around. They thought that Lin Ling was really capable when he talked about it. But now they felt that they were stupid. Their intelligence seemed to have been lowered. Of course, it was no wonder that they trusted Lin Ling. Lin Ling left them with a mysterious impression. My sacred body devil heart. At this moment, Queen Qianji let out a painful groan. Those who didn't know her would think that she was being tortured. In fact, her sacred body devil heart pill had been burned into a pile of rotten meat. It was mixed with the other materials. Sigh! Even Luo Riyao sighed softly. However, just as their hearts were filled with disappointment, the flames began to transform. They actually turned into volcanoes, and a piece of material floated in the mouth of each volcano. There were over 100 volcanoes, and those volcanoes seemed to be able to clearly distinguish each material. This. Oh my God! What's happening? Could it be that the flame can separate the materials by itself? Queen Qianji and the others were shocked. It was as if they were injected with chicken blood. I've told you. Not only have you never heard of it, but you've also seen it with your own eyes. At this moment, Lin Ling's indifferent voice came from the boundary. He missed this moment because he hadn't used this refining method for a very long time. There were two reasons why he could use it now. First, he had the space-time flame. Second, his soul power had reached a terrifying level. He could control each material. Rumble. Chapter 2439. Was this still a simple refinement? This peerless wide boundaries concept lies in its breadth. Don't think that the boundary is big, but the main fire boundary alone is 900 million, and the auxiliary boundary is made up of 49 basic boundaries. Each basic boundary has 500 million boundaries, which correspond to the main fire boundary. 2 by 2 intersects, 3 by 3 intersects, 7 by 7 changes, and 9 by 9 mysteries. It can give rise to countless auxiliary effects. Therefore, although the materials seem chaotic, they are actually all controlled by the boundary, and the boundary is controlled by my soul force. Lin Ling's voice floated out. The volcanoes in the barrier began to fuse together. In the next moment, a large black sword flew out. The new tyrannical song sword had been created. Terrifying shockwaves swept out along with the great sword. However, after Lin Ling created a few barriers, that powerful aura was restrained. It's at least a grade 9 artifact. The old man's pupils trembled fiercely when he saw this. At this moment, a loud boom rang out. The flames within the barrier formed a huge explosion that destroyed everything. Moreover, the entire cave collapsed. Queen Qianji and the others were protected by divine light, which blocked the falling rocks. However, they were all stunned, because this seemed to be a cauldron explosion. Although they didn't know anything about alchemy, they knew what a cauldron explosion meant. Could it be that Lin Ling had failed at the crucial moment? You managed to refine your own sword, but you failed to refine my pill. Qianji Queen couldn't help but shout. Her sacred body and demon heart had been destroyed. My condolences. Alchemy, especially divine pills, doesn't have a 100% success rate. Luo Riyao smiled wryly and comforted him. I know, but Qianji Queen almost cried. Although she knew that the pill couldn't have a 100% success rate, how could she not feel sad when her sacred body and demon heart were destroyed? One had to know that the treasure was something that could move countless old monsters. However, at this moment, the sound of footsteps suddenly rang out. Lin Ling walked out from the rubble and said indifferently, You call yourself a queen? Can you do that? That's a sacred body demon heart, not something else. Lin Ling's arrogant attitude and his nonchalant attitude made Queen Qianji roar in anger. Tears welled up in her eyes. She couldn't wait to kill Lin Ling catch. However, Lin Ling waved his hand, and a jade-like heart flew toward Thousand Fate Queen. Sacred Body Magic Heart Pill. It can help you reach the level of divine body. As the elixir floated out, a mysterious melody rang out. It was as if a heart was beating. Even Luo Riyao and the others' hearts were beating along with the melody. This pill was extraordinary. Just by feeling, they knew that the medicinal pill seemed to have succeeded. Queen Qianji was stunned. She quickly caught the elixir, and her enchanting face was filled with excitement. When the enchantment barrier broke, it wasn't because the cauldron was broken. It was because the energy required to form the pill was much more than before. Therefore, I used the energy of 500 million fire enchantments and 49 basic enchantments to maintain the pill until it was formed. At the moment when the pill was formed, I used 50 million fire enchantments to seal the pill. That's why the enchantment barrier broke. Lin Ling said calmly. In the shattered cave, there was a deathly silence. Soon cries of surprise could be heard everywhere. Damn! You call this a simple refinement? Just kill me. This is simple. What if it's complicated? Don't tell me you're going to refine the entire universe. Lin Ling, thank you. Hehe. My sacred body magic heart pill. Lin Ling looked at the three of them and smiled faintly. He had returned the favor to Queen Qianji. Then he saw Queen Qianji swallowing the elixir. He frowned and said, I forgot to tell you. After you swallow the elixir, you must take some supplementary elixirs every month. Otherwise, as time passes, the effect of the sacred body magic heart pill will disappear. What does that mean? Queen Qianji raised her head and stared at Lin Ling. It means that you will have to follow me for at least a year, and I will make elixirs for you every month. Lin Ling said in a deep voice, I'm the queen. Why should I follow you? I can't wait to kill you. That's none of my business. Lin Ling, no wonder you're so kind as to make elixirs for me. You're doing it for me. That's right. I need a bodyguard. Hearing Lin Ling's words, Queen Qianji clenched her teeth in anger. This damn brat. On the other hand, Luo Riyao and the others smiled bitterly and shook their heads. Lin Ling had a good plan to get a bodyguard for free for a year. Fine. I agree. But let me remind you. Be careful when you sleep. You might die if you're not careful. For the sake of the future, for the sake of becoming stronger, Queen Qianji endured it for the time being. However, Lin Ling shrugged his shoulders indifferently. Luo Riyao and the others looked at each other. They felt that Lin Ling was very mysterious. Although Lin Ling's current strength was not as strong as theirs, Lin Ling's potential was very strong. On top of that, he had a godlike mastery of spirit formation. They could not miss out on a junior like him. Lin Ling, are you interested in joining our Fuxing Manor? Luo Riyao pondered for a moment and asked. For a genius like you, there are bound to be many forces in the 9 prefectures who would like to recruit you. For example, the Heavenly Court. However, the Heavenly Court and our Fuxing Manor had a fierce conflict in the 9 prefectures. We're already enemies. So if you join the Heavenly Court, you might become our enemy. Furthermore, you're now a wanted criminal of the Flying Dragon organization. If you join our Fuxing Manor, we can guarantee your safety. Clearly, Luo Riyao was offering an olive branch to Lin Ling. The Heavenly Court and Fuxing Manor are going against each other. Hearing that, Lin Ling's eyes lit up. These two forces were spread all over the 9 prefectures. The conflict between them must be very intense. Unfortunately, his current strength was still too weak, and he couldn't join that kind of battlefield. Otherwise, he'd like to meet the experts of the Heavenly Court. Alright, I'll join the Fuxing Manor. Without any hesitation, Lin Ling nodded. That's great. Luo Riyao and Luo Riyao were overjoyed. They didn't expect Lin Ling to agree so readily. They had high hopes for Lin Ling. Luo Riyao couldn't help but laugh excitedly. Your current cultivation is still too low. When you become stronger, I'll bring you to the Fuxing Manor. Moreover, you're now one of us. Every month, you'll receive 50,000 divine crystals. You can also borrow 10 million divine crystals from the Fuxing Manor. Moreover, we have people in the Qing province's Great Azure Divine Dynasty. If you meet them, they'll help you. Being a member of the Fuxing Manor, the benefits were very good. Lin Ling nodded with satisfaction. He even remembered that in his previous life, Li Xiaoyao had left behind a large sum of money in the Fuxing Manor. If there was a chance, he would take it back. As for the Flying Dragon organization, the Fuxing Manor will do their best to help you. Of course, if you're confident, you can also become an assassin in the Flying Dragon organization. This way, the mission to kill you will also end. The old man in green reminded. The Flying Dragon organization was an intermediary assassin organization. Anyone could join, but they must have the corresponding strength. Chapter 2440. Goodbye, Sun Yaoyang. After a few more words, Sunset Brilliance, and the others left. Queen Qianji looked at Lin Ling angrily, and turned into a pink spider, disappearing into Lin Ling's sleeve. She wanted to improve her talent, so she entered a state of cultivation. Sensing this, Lin Ling smiled and left the cave. He understood why Sunset Brilliance and the others wanted to recruit him. First, it was because of his talent. Second, it was because Sunset Brilliance wanted to enter the Eight Gods' Heavenly Palace next time, so he had a favor to ask of him. However, Luo Riyao had helped him before, so Lin Ling didn't mind it too much. After completing the mission, I have become the last generation disciple. However, my strength can be ranked at the top of the third generation disciples. Soon, Lin Ling was strolling in the chaos of the universe. He didn't expect that the mission of the last generation disciple would come to such an end after so many twists and turns. However, he had to return to the academy immediately. Otherwise, the academy would think that he was dead. Moreover, there was still his city square, and the third generation disciple, the 36 world kings. It was time to settle their grudges with him. Not long after, Lin Ling arrived at the rising sun boundary. At this moment, because of Lin Ling's battle, this boundary was divided into two. Lin Ling pondered for a moment, then walked towards the rising sun boundary. Those experts are too abnormal. Just by moving their feet, the sun-rising world is in turmoil. Fortunately, these experts have all left. Otherwise, I'm afraid we'll have to leave our home. No matter what, it's good that those experts left. However, I don't know what happened to Senior Lin Ling. Alas, with so many experts here, I'm afraid his fate will be. Don't talk nonsense. On the vast land of the rising sun boundary, the Sun family's army appeared in the former imperial city. At this moment, everyone spoke. However, when they mentioned Lin Ling, their faces darkened. Good people have good luck. Senior Lin Ling is definitely not dead. Don't talk nonsense. Otherwise, don't blame me for being merciless. The second Prince Sun Yaoyang's face sank. He glared at the army, but in reality, he didn't have much confidence. Hearing that, everyone sighed inwardly. Sun Yaoyang, how have you been? But at this moment, an indifferent voice suddenly sounded, causing everyone's eyes to focus. When they turned their heads to look, they suddenly saw a young man in a blue and white robe appear, smiling at them. Who else could it be but Lin Ling? Lin Ling, you're still alive? Sun Yaoyang was pleasantly surprised. The previous battle was so fierce, yet Lin Ling was still alive. This was a miracle. Hearing this, Lin Ling was stunned. At this time, Sun Yaoyang said, "Let's go quickly." Although the assassins of the rising sun boundary seem to have left, for safety's sake, we should leave the rising sun boundary immediately. That's right. Senior Lin Ling, you should leave quickly. The strength of those experts is extremely terrifying. In the battle, the sun-rising world was split into two. If they know that you are still alive, it will not be good. The others also let out anxious voices. Lin Ling had met them by chance, but he was willing to fight for them, the weak. Therefore, they were very grateful to Lin Ling. Although Lin Ling had said before that he would avenge Princess Sun Yener, in reality, they didn't have any illusions. No one is allowed to spread the news that Lin Ling is still alive. If anyone does, then 9 generations of your family will be killed. Sun Yaoyang said to the army. There were too many people, so he had to be careful. The mighty army nodded. Naturally, They wouldn't betray Lin Ling. Many people wanted to speak, but Lin Ling's next sentence silenced the army. I'm sorry, this boundary was cut by my battle with Long Patian. When these words came out, everyone stared at the young man, as if they were looking at a god. In reality, they called Lin Ling senior, because Lin Ling's strength was stronger than theirs. However, many people here felt that he was older than Lin Ling. And now, this young man who was much younger than them had actually cut the sun-rising world in half. It was said that the fierce battle that day had caused an uproar in the nearby area. In everyone's eyes, this was a battle between peerless powerhouses. And now, this peerless powerhouse had appeared in front of their eyes? Moreover, the 18 assassins were completely annihilated. Lin Ling said again, "Silence." A deathly silence. Then, the sound of people sucking in a cold breath rose and fell. No one would have thought that Lin Ling had wiped out all the assassins with his own strength. It had to be known that those assassins were the first to come to the sun-rising world. Their strength was unfathomable, and any one of them was much stronger than the Flaming Lip World King. And Lin Ling had dealt with them all by himself? This was simply like a dream. It seems that we were worried for you for nothing. Sun Yaoyang's heart rumbled as he finally smiled bitterly. If Lin Ling had such strength, why did he need to run? If those assassins saw him, they would probably run. It seemed that he had worried for nothing. I came here to send Sun Yin'er off on her last journey. I also want to tell her that the murderers who killed her have all been eliminated. Lin Ling smiled carelessly, then looked at Sun Yaoyang and said. Sun Yaoyang stared at Lin Ling, his heart moved. Finally he knelt down with a thud. He had already guessed that his sister had called Lin Ling master. So Lin Ling had stood up for his sister. But because of one sentence, Lin Ling dared to fight against the heavens. His sister had found a good master. A man's wealth is his own ruin. Because your sun-rising world had a sacred body demon heart, it attracted the attention of powerhouses. But now, the sacred body demon heart has disappeared, and the sun-rising world will return to peace. I don't need to worry about this place anymore. Goodbye. Lin Ling took a deep look at the crowd, then turned around and left. Thank you. Sun Yaoyang looked at Lin Ling, and finally kowtowed heavily. The army behind him did the same. They looked at the handsome young man and knelt down, not saying a word for a long time. Lin Ling did not see this scene. He soon appeared in the Huanyu chaotic world. The reason why he went to the sun-rising world was to settle some matters in his heart. At this moment, Queen Qianji's voice came from his body. I didn't expect you to be so kind. You did such a crazy thing for a stranger. Long Patian died an unjust death. Even if it wasn't for Sun Yin'er, Long Patian still had to die. Lin Ling said calmly, but his words were mixed with cold killing intent. At this moment, a stream of light came from the front. Then, a man in a red robe looked at Lin Ling calmly. This person's strength was unfathomable. He said, Qingzhou. This person came without warning. Even Lin Ling did not notice him. This meant that this person was extremely powerful. That's right. Yes. However, Lin Ling had Queen Qianji with him, so he was not afraid. You're very strong. Little guy, I look forward to seeing you in Crimson Province. Yes. Chapter 2441. Meeting the killer again. Obviously, he had received an order to restore the rising sun boundary. He only spoke to Lin Ling out of curiosity. Very strong. Queen Qianji, do you have the confidence to fight him? Yes. Lin Ling knew that he had met a powerhouse from the Crimson Prefecture. 50-50. After all, his realm is one realm higher than mine. Queen Qianji said, do you believe that if I reach the true immortal realm, I can defeat him with my full strength? Lin Ling smiled. Queen Qianji's heart trembled. Lin Ling was very confident. After all, the true immortal realm was a big step. Not every World King powerhouse could guarantee that they would reach the true immortal realm. Lin Ling didn't seem to care about the bottleneck of the true immortal realm. Queen Qianji didn't say anything. Haha, I was just kidding. You really believed it. Lin Ling laughed and strode away. Queen Qianji was stunned. She was so angry that she kept waving her spider legs. She couldn't wait to kill this arrogant brat. As for the red-robed man, he looked at Lin Ling's back. He was very puzzled. After all, it was rare for a World King Jr. to be so calm in front of him. Lin Ling continued on his way. He wanted to go back to his hometown, but when he thought of the market square, he decided to go back to the Azure Prefecture. That was because the marketplace had encountered a lot of trouble. Of course, before he went back, he also went to the martial gods' camp and brought the 3 martial gods out. The marshal of the martial gods' camp smiled at Lin Ling. He didn't say anything. He seemed to know that Lin Ling had experienced a lot. However, a true powerhouse could only reach the end by going through hardships. It had to be said that Lin Ling was getting closer and closer to the marshal's position. The 4 of them hurried on and arrived at the Green State without stopping. This was the first time that Sword Immortal Song Tian and the Dark Dragon Emperor had been here, and they couldn't help but gasp in awe. And after they entered the city, the expressions of Sword Immortal Song Tian and the others were immediately seen by many martial artists. Instantly they all laughed in disdain. Every person who came to the city for the first time would have such an expression. Since this is your first time in this city, you must have been shocked by the grandeur of this city. However, Qing province is vast and many places are forbidden. If you barge in recklessly, you will die. I have a map here that is very suitable for newcomers like you. An old man walked out from the crowd with a smile on his face. He was leaning on a walking stick and had a benevolent look on his face. He gave off a very good feeling. Really? Thank you, Senior. Sword Immortal Song Heaven and the others were surprised at first, but they were soon overjoyed. The surrounding people were all envious. They seemed to recognize that old man. That is Elder Song Zhong from the southern border. He is the kindest person. These newbies are really lucky. In Qing province, the weak were prey to the strong. Everyone only cared about themselves. It was rare to see someone taking pleasure in helping others. Sword Immortal Song Tian and the others immediately walked forward respectfully. But at this moment, Lin Ling smiled and said, "Let me do it." After saying that, he took a big step forward and blocked Sword Immortal Song Tian and the others behind him. Then, he came in front of the old man. "All right, let this young friend take the map. My map covers the entire Qing province. It will definitely be beneficial to you." The old man smiled benevolently and handed over a map. Lin Ling smiled faintly and took it easily. However, he didn't open the map. This stunned the old man and he asked, "Why don't you open the map and take a look? If there is anything you don't understand, I can explain it to you face to face." All of a sudden, I have no interest in opening the map. However, Lin Ling still smiled, and his words stunned the old man again. According to human nature, if the old man took the initiative to help, Lin Ling would definitely open the map and listen to the old man's instructions. But who knew that Lin Ling wouldn't open the map? The surrounding people were also puzzled. But soon someone said coldly, "What an ignorant junior. I told you that Elder Song Zhong helped the wrong person." They were obviously unhappy with Lin Ling's impoliteness. The old man smiled awkwardly and looked at Lin Ling expectantly. Since the surrounding people had said so, Lin Ling should open the map. Otherwise he would be too unreasonable. However, Lin Ling still didn't move. He looked deeply at the old man and finally said, "Senior, how long are you going to keep up this act?" "Young friend, what do you mean?" Hearing that, the old man's eyes flickered, but he still forced a smile. "In fact, I was also giving you a chance. It's a pity that you missed it. If I had attacked, you would have left your old life here." Lin Ling was still smiling, but his smile turned cold. The old man's face changed, and he didn't know what to say for a moment. The surrounding people immediately scolded, thinking that Lin Ling didn't know how to respect his elders. The old man kindly gave him the map, but his attitude was so fierce. Even Sword Immortal Song Tian and the others were surprised. In their impression, their master wasn't so cold and heartless. "Young friend, I really don't understand what you mean." The old man finally spoke. "You still have 3 breaths of time." However, Lin Ling said calmly. The old man's eyes flickered and he said again, "Young friend, is there some misunderstanding between us? I kindly gave you instructions, but you treat me with such an attitude. Don't you think that you are too arrogant?" His words were filled with anger, but the moment he finished speaking, his eyes changed and became cold. A dagger appeared in his hand. With a flash of cold light, the dagger stabbed towards Lin Ling. This movement didn't have any fluctuations of world essence. It looked very ordinary. But only a powerhouse would know that this dagger suppressed the strength of a 6th-level world king. It was extremely terrifying. This was an assassin. Moreover, when he attacked, he didn't cause any fluctuations of world essence. He was extremely fierce. However, Lin Ling had already sensed this. He quickly waved his right hand, and the Tyrant Song sword blocked in front of him. The pitch-black sword collided with the dagger, causing a shockwave to erupt. "Master!" Sword Immortal Song Tian, and the others cried out in alarm. The surrounding people's complexions also changed. Just what was happening? Impossible. My black pool fish intestine sword can kill any 6th-level world king. How can you block it? From the tumbling shockwaves, a cry of alarm sounded out. It was the old man's voice. Then, the crowd saw Lin Ling's ancient sword block in front of him, blocking the raging killing intent. Your information is wrong. The current me is not just a 6th-level world king. At the same time, Lin Ling coldly said, "How did you know I was coming to kill you?" The old man looked up, his face full of horror. Yes, he was an assassin. But he wasn't an assassin from the Flying Dragon organization, but came from some other great influence. He originally wanted to look for Lin Ling, but by a stroke of lucky chance, he encountered Lin Ling here. Thus, he used the excuse of helping Lin Ling to approach Lin Ling, wanting to deal a fatal blow. Moreover, his original plan was to kidnap Sword Immortal Firmament and the others. Chapter 2442. The shopkeeper was deceiving the customer. A person's eyes are the window to their soul. They cannot deceive others, much less someone who has just survived the clutches of the Flying Dragon organization. Second, I don't believe there is such a kind existence in this world, at least not in Blue Province. Third, your map has exposed you. This is not a map, but a treasure called the Blazing Light Smoke Net Spirit Map. Once I open the map, the smoke net will cover me, and I will lose all senses. Then, you can easily kill me. Lin Ling lightly said. Bang! As these words fell, the old man's heart thundered. He never imagined that this junior Lin Ling would be so terrifying and experienced. In truth, he thought that killing Lin Ling would be easy. Unfortunately, all of his plans had been seen through by Lin Ling. Die! Lin Ling raised his sword and coldly said. Hold on, don't you want to know who wants to kill you? If I tell you, you have to let me go. The old man panicked. Not long ago, Lin Ling fought with the 36 world kings and didn't win. Thus, he guessed that Lin Ling's strength was at the 6th stage of the world king realm. But this information was wrong. The current Lin Ling could already fight with the 7th stage world king. Thus he was a bit afraid. In truth, what he didn't know was that Lin Ling was already invincible in the 7th stage of the world king realm. Unfortunately, just as he finished speaking, Lin Ling decisively slashed out with his sword. Plop! A sword mark appeared on the old man's neck, and he powerlessly fell to the ground. I don't need you to tell me. I know who wants to kill me. If it isn't my commandery, then it is Grand Court commandery. Lin Ling put away his sword and walked past him. The old man's eyes widened. Finally, his vitality dissipated, and he died with his eyes wide open. Let's go. Lin Ling waved at Sword Immortal Firmament, and the others before walking towards Radiant Academy. Master, you're too fierce. We were almost fooled. Ancient martial god Yungu, and the others said with lingering fear. They were overlords in the Rainforest Holy Land, but in martial god world, they were far too inexperienced. Who is this young man? He's so strong. He actually saw through the assassin's plot. We were all kept in the dark before. He seems to be a genius from the Resplendent Academy. After Lin Ling left, the rogue cultivators on the street all started discussing animatedly. Lin Ling's face was ice cold. He knew who wanted to kill him the most, and he also knew who the mastermind was. It should be the last generation disciple candidate named Luo Le and Great God Qian. Now that he had returned, he would settle both old and new grudges. At this moment, the market outside the Resplendent Academy was still bustling with noise. This street was connected to the first ring of the Azure Province, So many rogue cultivators came here. As for the rainforest market, it was quite famous in the area. It was not because the market was doing well, but because it was targeted by all the nearby markets. It was only a matter of time before it went bankrupt. In fact, if it weren't for the fact that there were a few people with powerful backgrounds in the market would have already been trampled to pieces. The few people with powerful backgrounds were Tang Yue, Gong Yangjiang, and the others from the Square Commandery. At this moment, there were very few people in the rainforest market. Scattered customers were choosing treasures. Among them, a young man who had just become a candidate shook his head and said, "I'm sorry, I'm not going to refine the spirit cleansing elixir." The spirit cleansing elixir was a reward for every candidate. However, the rainforest market was unique in that it could increase the effect of the elixir by 30%. Don't underestimate 30%. Often, when a warrior made a breakthrough, they relied on this 30%. Therefore, although there was little business in the market, there were still customers. This was also why the nearby markets were jealous. "You're not going to refine it?" In the market, Xian Yuanguo raised his good-looking face and frowned. "I'm not going to refine it. I don't have that much money. I only have 30,000 divine gems." The young man was a newcomer. He was a little timid, but he still gritted his teeth and said, 30,000? We need 100,000 divine gems to refine the spirit cleansing elixir. You only have 30,000? Tang Yue walked over from the side and couldn't help but say, "Then do you know how many materials we need to refine the spirit cleansing elixir again? Now that you're not going to refine it, all the materials we used before will be wasted." After saying that, she looked at the sweaty Xian Yuanguo, and couldn't help but feel heartache. In order to improve the market's business, Xian Yuanguo had put in a lot of effort during this period of time. Now he had lost a lot of weight. Now, Xian Yuanguo was expending energy to help the young man refine the elixir, but the other party said that he wasn't going to refine it. It was as if it had nothing to do with him. "I'm a newcomer. I really don't understand these things. However, don't think of bullying me. Since I haven't refined the spirit cleansing elixir, I definitely won't give you 100,000 divine gems. Anyway, I'm not going to refine it." The young man's face was a little red. He seemed a little shy in front of the two beauties, but he snatched the spirit cleansing elixir from Xian Yuanguo's hand and immediately turned to leave. "Stop!" Tang Yue couldn't help but shout. Was that young man still a man? He asked the two women to work for him, but at the crucial moment, he ran away timidly and even looked like a victim. It was extremely infuriating. "Don't tell me you want to bully the newcomer?" The young man didn't even look back. He wanted to leave the market immediately. Tang Yue, Gong Yangjiang, and falling flowers flowing water sword immediately chased after him. After all, they had wasted 100,000 divine gems. If everyone was like that young man, how could they continue to do business? They could only lose money. When the young man saw Tang Yue and the others chasing after him, he quickened his pace and became extremely flustered. At this moment, it seemed that some people had noticed what was happening in the Yulin market. So many people were watching the show. People from the nearby markets also appeared. There were people from Tating Commandery, Weiwa Commandery, and so on. Two of them seemed to want to uphold justice and stood in front of the young man. These two people were Luo Lu and Great God Qian. Luo Lu said to the young man indifferently, "It's fine. The eyes of the masses are bright. This market wants to cheat you and ruin the reputation of this street. We won't allow it." Thank you, senior brother." The young man was instantly ecstatic and stopped in his tracks. Tang Yue and the others also walked over. When they saw this scene, they were so angry that their faces turned pale. Xian Yuanguo immediately said, "Business is business. Both sides are willing. Our business has paid 100,000 divine gems worth of materials. But the customer said that he doesn't want to do business and then ran away. This violates the principles of doing business. So we are looking for the customer to settle the account. How can we talk about cheating and ruining the reputation of this street? Nonsense. If I had the spirit cleansing elixir, I would have paid the 100,000 divine gems. But I didn't, so why should I pay? That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.